Rising steps up and throws to the end zone, and Dixon is in. Touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Here's Gordon again. Jump cut in the hole. Bust it to the outside. And Gordon diving for the end zone. Touchdown, Oklahoma State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Now the throw across the middle. That was caught. And on a broken tackle, J.P. Richardson. Touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
And here's Green. He's going to keep it. And Green breaks loose. Garrett Green across midfield and forced out of bounds at about the 25 by D. Winters.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Lance Leipold's group with the 14-zip lead on Matt Campbell's Iowa State team. And Jalen Nolan is out to the races. Down the sideline. Noel tripped up inside the 5.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
R.J. Harvey, direct snap. He keeps it. And now UCF has a touchdown to start the ball game.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Welcome in, Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross here today. If you notice, I'm sitting in Smokey's seat today because this is where we start our Smokeless Fridays. And while I don't particularly enjoy Smokeless Fridays as much as I do smoke-filled Monday through Thursdays, we're going to have a blast. We had a blast last year. There'll be confetti and streamers. I don't know what we're going to be, but it's football now. Other people have played. Other people have nearly disappointed. So maybe for 72 hours, we can get the focus off of my alma mater for just a hot minute. Just a hot minute. Maybe we can do that. I'm hoping that we can. We have a lot to get to today. We have a bunch of, several new guests. And by next week, we're going to have a bunch of new guests on the show. But Grayson Grundhafer at 3:45 will preview Baylor and Tarleton State. Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country. He joins us at 4 o'clock. That's going to be a regular segment every Friday. Peyton Socher. He has started a website called Rankings Right Now, where he does predictive rankings based on things that could happen. It's really awesome. It is something, when he reached out to me on Twitter a couple weeks ago, Garrett, that is, it's something that should have always been, but there was nothing for it.
Yeah.
Like, no one ever did it. And then, like, when he's doing it, I'm like, oh, there's got to be. And so I just said, before I even wrote him back, I'm like, oh, this is probably, like sometimes it's like 50-50.
Yeah.
Like it's with authors and books. Mm-hmm. So when you're in this business, you get a lot of solicitation for people who want to come promote the things on the show. We love it because it helps us like discover things we would never have. But with the good comes the bad. You and I worked at a radio station forever, and we would get a lot of free books.
Yes.
A lot of free books. You and I are voracious readers.
We are.
So we love a good free book.
Absolutely.
The problem with free books, though, is they're either one of two kinds of free books. They are either really good.
Which is rare.
Or.
Which is rare.
Or they're by a guy who wrote a book.
Yes.
Like, that's the way I'll put it nicely.
Yeah,
congratulations, you finished your book.
I feel like the one me and you gathered at the Super Bowl, was it last year? It was last year.
Yeah.
Was one of those later ones where it was just written by a dude.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was curious in the subject matter, but it was not written by a writer.
No, not at all. It was by somebody who
was
passionate
about
a situation. Yes.
Passionate about a situation, an important situation. He's well-intentioned. He's doing great work.
Absolutely.
The book, though, should have farmed that out.
Yes.
You know, sometimes
living to learn.
Sometimes you like, you know, I'd like to write this book. I need a ghostwriter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or an elite, just somebody to help guide you, keep the training wheels on a bit as you're learning the steps.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember when I was younger, I used to think like, man, to write a book and get it published must be like some kind of feat. And then you get to college and you have professors like, no, it's not really. I mean, not that it's not hard to write one, but like, you know, to actually get a book on a shelf, that's to sell a book is hard.
Yeah.
To write the book and sell the book is hard. But to get it, like to get money from some person to tell you to do it, in a lot of regards, most of the time is not as hard as I thought it was.
No, it's not, especially now, like with the way that you can get out there and do self-publishing. There's just so many different nooks and crannies to get around it. Yeah.
I have to tell you a story when it comes to self-publishing off the air. I don't want to say it because it would embarrass the person. But anyway, but Peyton Socher has this rankings right now, and I thought, okay, well, let me look up and see what similar sites are. And, you know, we had a kid who was writing Cowboys books that used to come to the station all the time. His dad would come and, like, give us the book, and it was all right. Yeah. But, like, you know, it just wasn't – we would do it and help him because he's a local kid, but it just wasn't, like, good. So all the time I was vet these things. Mm-hmm. You know, make sure, like, I don't want to get an author who's like, I decided to write about Pete Maravich, but this is after my other book was Hitler so bad. Like, you know, like, okay, I want to make sure that, like, we're not, you know, just like whitewashing or like, you know, ignoring, like, you know, this guy's like, so what about puppy murder? You know,
it's not that big of a deal.
Like, look, have you ever eaten a puppy? Okay, don't judge until you have. Like that you don't want. So I looked for other sites. He is literally the only one. Mm-hmm. And to his credit, he's doing really good work when he has no competitors in the market. So that's really good. So we're gonna have Peyton on for the first time today. He'll be with us fairly regularly throughout the year to kind of talk about these things.
That was one of the more unique things with looking at what he has together is how there are so many different analytical aspects and angles you could take on it when you find one that gives you different information that you haven't seen before and what is now kind of like a hot market. It's pretty cool to tap into that and get some more insight.
Yeah, absolutely. So also today we'll have Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, and Josh Neighbors will help us wrap up the show today at 5:30 and take us into the top five. So top five today is coaches ready for the P4. So that should be an interesting one as well. All right, let's dive into it, Garrett. Before we get to we'll get to the rundown this way. Let's start with Colorado and North Dakota State last night. If you ask me what is different between Colorado in 2024 as it was in 2023, they're in a different conference, and it is 2024. There is not much different about this team now. To give their offensive line credit, it is better.
It is.
But it went from an F- to a C-, D+, depending on the moment. They still can't run the ball very well.
Which was surprising.
They still have an offense that's kind of more grip it and rip it than methodical. And their defense is what their defense was. I mean, it's hard to gauge against North Dakota State, but North Dakota State
they're good, man.
Attacked them really, really well. And if you're going to say, okay, well, if North Dakota State, who's really, really good and probably has 10 to 15 guys that could transfer to FBS schools, if they could go up, they could. So it's a pretty fair gauge on what they're going to see, at least at the bottom rung of the Big 12. I think North Dakota State could have maybe handled, last year's Cincinnati team.
Oh, probably. I mean, there was probably a couple of teams in the Big 12 they could have got last year.
They probably would have beat last year's Baylor team.
Yeah.
Just because, that game went exactly as I said it was going to go. Fundamentals, but too much athleticism on the other side. So before I get into, dogging Colorado, let's talk about things that they have that are not good but great. Shedeur Sanders is fantastic. He is absolutely fantastic. I am not going to stand here and take any slander on Shedeur Sanders' ability to play. If you don't like Shedeur Sanders, it's because you don't like his dad, you don't like, their whole personality, their whole vibe.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That's not that's not real, guys. Let the guy be his personality, and then we don't know him. That's what I try to do. TV personality, real personality is a lot different thing. I call it the Phil Mickelson index. Like, if you looked at Phil Mickelson before everybody figured out he was kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, he was the guy. Vijay Singh would, like, walk down the golf course like a zombie, very focused on the game. But, like, if you were at a tournament, and I saw this at 3 different tournaments I went to, and we're like, yo, Phil, he'd be like,
Yep.
What's up, buddy? How you going? Yeah, all right. Are you pounding buds right now? All right, there we go. You know, like, he would wink and gun you, wave at you. But, you know, after the thing, if like a little kid walked up and go, Vijay Singh, you're my favorite golfer, he'd be like, oh man, that's great, thank you. And oh, Phil, I hope you beat Tiger. Yeah, okay, whatever. You know,
be gone.
I mean, all right, are there cameras here? Or, you know.
Yep.
So what if they killed a journalist? Like that's Phil, right? You know, well, I got money, I got mine. You know,
don't mind me.
I didn't know him. You know, like that was kind of his vibe. But last night the nice thing about that game for Colorado was, look, Travis Hunter is
oh my God, dude,
is the truth.
That one, the last touchdown catch he made was one of the greatest catches I've ever seen.
Yeah,
ever.
That's actually the only touchdown catch he made.
Well, I guess that was the only touchdown, but he made
he made 3 touchdowns, but it's the only one he made without interfering with the guy.
Yeah.
But let me tell you this, I don't care, because if they don't call it, they don't call it.
No.
I can't sit here as a Cowboys fan from the 90s and tell you offensive pass interference bothers me. It does not. He's got a little Michael Irvin in him, and he's not that big, but he's clearly pretty strong.
Oh, yeah.
Because he can brush off of people. And
well, they were letting him play, though. I did like that. There were some calls towards the end, and they missed some calls. But for overall, I think that for being a first game out the gate, it was pretty clean by both parties, and I like how they let them just kind of the receivers and the defenders go at it.
Yeah, they did, and it was a good game. Like, North Dakota State had a shot to. I mean, they caught the Hail Mary, man.
Yes.
I mean, Colorado does not look different, and I will be interested to see if Nebraska looks different this week.
I think they will,
and if they do, then that game next week gets a little heavier. Even so, and I think it's a big game for both squads, obviously. And I can tell you, Matt Rule wants it. Like, not that he doesn't, but like this one, I promise you.
Well, also, like, looking at the success last night that Cam Miller was able to have, the quarterback from North Dakota State, like every time he wanted to drop back and throw a ball across the middle, it was wide open. Yeah. The secondary for Colorado could not cover at all. So I think Dylan Raiola, if he lives up to the hype, should be able to pick apart that secondary. But it's probably going to be a shootout next week, honestly. Yeah. Because Shadur is so good. He's so efficient. His pocket presence is really, really good. I like how he doesn't just try to – like, he only runs if he has to. But, man, his just poise in the pocket is so surreal. It's you could tell he's ready to make the jump.
He's ready. He's ready. Man, like, you know what I was watching that game last night and thinking, particularly about Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter? Like, where, like, I took myself to an alternate universe where Deion was like, I'm the richest dude ever. I don't need a coach. Like, this is not my thing. I'm just going to be on TV, and I'm going to support my alma mater unconditionally. And, you know,
you were daydreaming.
I was daydreaming, like, man, Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter. And
y'all, I mean, Florida State he took them, didn't he?
The last damn day. I mean, that was funny. Last night was the first, John Machota and I texted.
I bet.
Last night was the first time I ever felt it. Like, I was always,
man,
I always was like, dang.
Yeah.
Last night was like, oh.
And I don't know, like, he's good. Like, I hope he wins the Heisman.
Hey, I hope he wins the Heisman. Like, I'm all for him winning the Heisman.
I am too.
I'm all for him winning the Heisman. I think if he wins the Heisman, he's going number 1 overall.
He should.
Unless it's a quarterback. Like, if it's somebody like, say, Carolina, who's not going to do that again, and if Bryce Young's not the problem, or somebody who just, or like Minnesota. Like, if Minnesota struggles this year, they wind up with the number 1 overall pick. Well, they drafted J.J. McCarthy. That's your number 1 pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. But again, that depends. But he'll be in the top 5. He may be the first non-quarterback drafted. I'll put it that way.
He probably will be. Outside of like a big defensive lineman that steps up or something like that. But he'll definitely be a top 5 pick at least.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it was just, those are great things. Look, Jimmy Horn Jr. is a stud. LaJohntay Wester, like I told you guys, he's catching passes. Like he's a weapon for Shedeur, especially in those situations where, since they don't have a running game and they can, throw a little short pass to him and he can create.
Yeah.
Like that's a big thing for them. So that's the good. The bad is they just don't look like they're tough. They're
finesse. Deion was finesse. We hear all the time about coaches take on the identity of players take on the identity of their coach. When you have a finesse guy, you're going to have that.
Yeah.
They're more about the flash, the style points, the explosive plays. They're not about getting gritty, getting down, and winning those. Whereas North Dakota State, that's their whole damn identity.
Yeah, it's reversed, right? It's totally reversed. So I thought that was great. Let's get to a couple of the tweets from things last night. Deion, I think this is better than his, do you believe now thing.
Yeah, he toned it down a bit.
He toned it, this is smarter than do you believe now? I was like, Ed Werder's like, what? Like,
do I what?
It's not like I said there's no ghosts, and then very clearly there was a ghost here.
Yeah.
Like Abraham Lincoln was like, hello, I am Abraham Lincoln's ghost. Let me walk through you and do that. Some of you got upset that we got the W. Some of you really mad we didn't get the L. So God bless y'all. You'll have to wait again until next week. That's the appropriate level of trash talk for being a head coach. Mm-hmm. And it's here's the thing. It's true.
Oh, it is. I mean, there was a lot of people that I would love to see the number. I know Craig will probably have the numbers next week when he does Off the Radar on Tuesday, but the amount of hate watching that game probably got and will get throughout the entire year. It's going to be something to monitor because Deion's personality rubs me the wrong way. He comes like evangelical, or a politician. I just can't really get with the vibe. But I mean, so I wouldn't necessarily hate watching, but I guess I could have kind of been thrown in that category. I would have liked to see North Dakota State win, but I do respect what we saw out of Shedeur, and I respect what we saw out of Travis Hunter. And the playmakers they do have, that is the only difference. They have more weapons. They just don't have, Shedeur still doesn't have the time to really take advantage of all of the what he has out on the field with him.
Yeah. That's true. They've got to get better. All right, this on Travis Hunter.
Okay.
This is from Mike Renner, who I reached out to today, to no avail. Travis Hunter only came off the field for 2 plays the entire game.
It's ridiculous.
Last night.
I don't know, the conditioning he has to have. And they were talking about his post-game therapy, everything he goes through. Man, I don't know how you
that's
do
that. Marathon runner stuff. And he's fast. Usually sprinters don't have that kind of. There's a reason that you only do in the Olympics, the elite sprinters only do 2 or 3 heats a day.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're expending all your energy in a mad sprint to be that. Mm-hmm. So, yes, Sydney McLaughlin's one of the best athletes in the world, but we're not going to make her do 300-400s in a day at full speed.
Right.
You're going to make her do 2, and the next day you'll make her do, in the finals, they only have 1, all that. So it's impressive what he's doing.
I haven't, throughout my time of watching college football, I haven't really been able to fully see the amount of dual threat or both athletes that go both ways as you have. You look at your Champ Baileys and Desmond Howards, people that were able to do it. When you look at what Travis Hunter does, is he the best 2-way player we've ever seen in college football?
I mean, I don't know about that yet. I mean, he's close. I mean, he's the one who's because here's the thing, Champ Bailey played 2 ways. Charles Woodson played 2 ways. Deion played a little bit, but all was all a package for them.
Yeah, but this is dude's not.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that people haven't done in forever. I mean, forever.
Yeah.
Since the 40s. So, I mean, it's really amazing what he's doing. Mm-hmm. So you just can't hate on that.
No, you can't. You got to respect
it. All right, going to run through the rest of our tweets here and get through some of that stuff. And then when we come back, I want to talk about Utah, and I want to talk about Kansas, and I want to talk about UCF. But I feel like our emotions on Colorado are out. We'll talk about it later in the show with Josh. But, right now we've got other things to take care of, and we don't want to get focused in and be like, let's talk about Deion all the time.
No, I mean, we
listen.
gave him the time.
I'm not going to chase clicks and views. No. If that was the thing, I'd pull like a picture of Sydney Sweeney behind us, and, and major league it for everything.
Emory wouldn't get nothing done. we would totally derail Sports Tonight.
You know what? You know what? I'm going to put a theory out there. About a week ago, she put out an Instagram story that like exploded all over the place, like many of the people who were looking at it. Hey-oh. But like it went very viral. That night at about 9 o'clock, Channel 10 sent me a text going, hey, we're missing a segment.
Oh.
And I was like, well, that's weird. Same day.
Yep.
Same day.
Emory.
Just saying. Same day. But yeah, okay. Let's move on. All right. So this one I moved earlier on because Paxton has been so loyal and UT Parking has been so loyal. So I wanted to give, especially since I spent a significant amount of Mondays, triple option, absolutely saying awful things about the University of Texas and how much I despise them, and watching them play against Florida would just be me watching, just hate watching everything. So this is really good news for them. In the last 3 weeks, the Longhorns have landed these prospects. This is what the SEC does for you, and NIL and all those things.
That's more of it.
They were joining the SEC at the perfect time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this could not have been more written in the stars for them. Jonah Williams, the number 1 safety. Kalik Lockett, the number 4 wide receiver. And then just yesterday, in what was a months-long battle, picked up Jamie French, 2 Fs French, from Florida, from Jacksonville, Florida, and it was down to them in Miami, tooth and nail. And I'm wondering if Miami's little NIL, thing happened. But I think this is all about Texas being in a much better spot.
For me, this is the deep pockets that Texas has that they're going to be able to exploit and do whatever they want and truly get whoever they want. And if you look at Williams and French in particular, while Miami was in the mix down there, both of them, LSU was in the mix. And it was really, if you look at Jonah Williams, it was down to, I believe it was LSU, Texas, and one other school, whereas French, it was LSU, Texas, and Miami. And LSU has not got the money. Like that's one thing with Texas coming in, they're not going to be able to recruit with them on that par. They're going to get theirs, but Texas right now, what they're doing is super impressive, and this is only the beginning because
that's why Brian Kelly said, "Look, we're going to take care of people, but like if we're going to get into a bidding war,
you can't do it with Texas.
We can't do it.
No,
so they're going to have to and look, it doesn't mean just because you win bidding wars, you're going to be good.
No, you got to develop. But Texas has shown right now, Sark and them, that they have the right everything in place to not only get high caliber players, but actually develop them in a way that hasn't been done in over a decade there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's impressive. It's impressive. All right, let's go to this next one. Michael McCann at McCann Sports Law. If the NCAA settlement in the House case is preliminarily approved, college athletes in the different classes will be notified about their rights, including if they want to opt out of them, which most won't.
Right.
There might be some, I'm going to stand on principle here, people. How will they be notified? One way is through a postcard.
Yeah, because
that's how Emory, last time you answered a postcard.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, exactly. Emory didn't even know what a postcard is.
Why can't you, we're at a point where you have everybody's information. Send it to a school, email it, or you could have an app. Set something up on an app where everybody can download it, and it's all located in one central location. You don't have to worry about everything that goes on with the mail, weather delays, and all of that. This is so archaic, and this is exactly why the NCAA has fallen apart, because they have failed continuously to roll with the times. And when you force them into a situation, they don't want to adapt, and they live in the courtrooms. This is just another indication of how far behind and just ridiculous they are as a whole, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Yeah. No, I'm often amazed, right? These things. I mean, I guess you've got to do everything you can, but also, and I really hope that you're not a person who makes your money on junk mail, like mailers. Like if you are, good for you. But again,
stop killing the forest.
In the Paul Catalina presidency, that junk mail, spam calls, and all those things, they go away.
It needs to.
Nothing comes to me that I don't ask for. Nothing. Like, I'm not like, hey, I'm pre-approved for a credit card. Mm-hmm. Well, you're pre-rejected. So I've already pre-rejected you.
Right.
And look, I appreciate a pizza coupon just as much as the next guy, but I would
always forget to use them.
I would always just rather, when I want to go order pizza, like go to the site and see what deals they have and just do that.
Or look up, you can find codes.
Yeah, it's not now. Like, used to be, like, believe me, when I was in college, we kept all those pizza coupons. We kept them all and we used them all. Mm-hmm. Although I'll tell you, Papa John's in a college town, I had a buddy, Keith Alberstead, who's a comedian. Look him up. He's fantastic. He had a joke that he was like, Papa John's coupons, they'll do anything. Like, you can just tell him, like, I got a pizza coupon here for 4 large pizzas, 50 chicken wings, and a dime bag for $25. Oh, and they're like, yeah, sure, yeah, we'll. Tito will be right out. Yeah. And look, I know this. Like I've told the story many times about the Rays. If you went to a Rays game, I don't know if it's still, but like back in 2003, the 2003 Rays, the Devil Rays, the back of every ticket had a free large pizza from Papa John's.
Oh.
So if you went with a couple people, you would call the Papa John's nearest to your apartment on the way home and be like, because it was a free one topping pizza with the Rays ticket. So if you had 4 people, you could get like a sausage, a pepperoni, a cheese, and a mushroom out the door, and just walk in and be like, here you go. All you had to do was pay the tax, and then we'd always tip them. But like, here's $10. Like, thanks. I got to know the guy pretty well. He's like, how many Rays games have you been to this month? I'm like, 7.
More to come.
Believe me, the tickets are dirt cheap and I get a free pizza.
Yep.
So, but yeah, that's the last time. So this is going to be more of a thing. Like, if you walk over to like any of the, well, I guess they probably don't live in dorms like they used to because of NIL. But if I walked into the nice apartment complex that they're going to park the 5-star freshmen in, and just look
for the Lambos.
And if I stood by the Lambos,
just look for the Lambos
at the Longhorns, place where they live, and just followed the mail guy around. And I was like, hey, he's got like 20 postcards he's putting in. I'd be like, just keep them.
Yeah.
They're going to get thrown. They're going to get ignored and thrown away. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. A postcard. Got to be kidding me.
So ridiculous.
Private equity is probably coming to college football. Well, it's definitely coming to the NFL. And experts are predicting that by, what year is this? That in 2 or 3 years, private equity, this is from Ben Fisher from Sports Business Journal, private equity will hold positions in a quarter of the NFL in just 2 or 3 years.
What?
Well, the NFL is big money. Like, private equity is gonna, like, they've been probably.
Well, that was my thing. Is when this came out about the NFL getting involved with it, I was thinking, did people in the college football circles catch wind of this, and that's why they started talking about it first? And you haven't really. Well, I haven't. I can't speak for everyone. I haven't seen the backlash, the confusion, the concern about this, the way we saw it with college.
Here's the thing. College is mostly non-billionaires.
True.
Seeking out billionaires.
Yeah.
These are billionaires, coming together for the cash.
Is this a monopoly?
No. I mean, the NFL is a
I know the
legal
NFL is a
monopoly,
but
they're not even really a monopoly anymore because there's other professional football leagues that exist. They just don't make it very long because it's hard. But I mean, they have an antitrust exemption,
right?
Okay, but what this is inviting billionaires that have a bunch of money, inviting other billionaires into the cash orgy. That's what it is. So if you think about like Eyes Wide Shut,
yeah.
as opposed to this being just exclusive to the 30 people or 32 owners, now they've opened the doors to other people to put their mask on and walk around.
So that's my thing. It's like I wonder how long it's going to take for, like, say a franchise like the Giants or or the Cowboys, somebody who's been owned by one singular family for so long before they eventually say they turn it over to the kids, the grandkids, and they just sell out. Like, how long is it going to take before it's just a bunch of companies and you lose like the family aspect and everything that it is and was with all of the NFL? It just kind of seems like a transition that we're seeing into the new wave of the future.
It is.
It's weird.
It is. From Brett McMurphy, Penn State, when favored by at least a TD, has won 24 consecutive games under James Franklin. In that span, Penn State is a remarkable 19-4-1 against the spread. Nittany Lions are an 8.5-point favorite at West Virginia. Garrett and I are calling it.
I'm taking the Mountaineers.
That streak comes to an end.
Yeah. Look, man, I think everything that is going on in West Virginia, the anticipation, you had Pat McAfee out there today, just the entire, what this means, what this win could mean, not only for that program and Neil Brown as a head coach, but like the Big 12 in general. I think it just means so much more to them than it does Penn State. Penn State is good. I just also feel like I'm not sold on Drew Aller. Like, I kind of feel like he is what he is at this point.
Wait till you hear from Kenneth Davis. I mean, he likes him.
I'm more on the Garrett Green train. And now he's definitely going to have to throw the ball better. And that offensive line is going to be tested. But I feel like there's just some energy right now in Morgantown that if they blow this, I don't know, like, if you could ever get back up. Yeah. Like, it's going to be hard. You can't just blow this game if you're West Virginia.
No, you absolutely cannot. They've got to do this. They've got to do this. They really do. All right. Also from Brett McMurphy, this is not the video.
I have another video. This is the screenshot.
This is the screenshot of it. I don't know if any of you saw this last night. Minnesota, North Carolina played a game that was delayed. And we'll talk about poor Max Johnson here in a second, but they missed the game winner last night. Minnesota did. They missed what would have been a game-winning field goal, and the fireworks, the pyrotechnics guys were so locked in, they fired them off. Anyway, now thankfully it was just the one and not the fireworks show. Like, they didn't hit the full button, but there were still fireworks after they missed a field goal, and
this is so Minnesota. Like, this is just a team, a school. We see this all the time where you just don't know, like, have a winning culture, or you're still kind of like new to it. You get a little hype. Like, this would not fly in the SEC.
Yeah.
Like, people would lose their minds. There would be a lot of firings.
I just think, hey, Wade, what you watching? Gophers. Okay. Gophers, like that. I see those guys like.
I'm just waiting. I've honestly, when this happened,
Gopher shot off fireworks after we lost.
I cannot wait to get Pierre's reaction.
Oh yeah,
when I saw this, I was like, dude, I cannot wait to hear Pierre talk about this.
Oh yeah, it's man. Oh, and I feel bad for the poor guy who was just like sitting there by the button and then hit it, and then like the other guy's like, no, Steve. Yeah, really bad.
Did you see the kick? Was it even close? I didn't get to see it.
I've seen it since then. What?
But was it not even close?
It was
kind of close.
Like, it depends on the angle you were looking. You know, if you're in a stadium or watching, like, field goal sometimes
it can be tricky.
I've been in the press box 1,000 times and been like, if I can't see if like, for example, at AT&T, I can see on. When I'm at Cowboys games, I can see on the side of the field that we are because we're
Yeah, you're right there,
We're like
right
catty
above it.
cornered right above it, so you can see when it goes in.
Yeah.
Unless it's like just gets in the far side of the left upright. Sometimes it's like, okay. But even then, you can also see the officials right away, too. But on the other side of the field, I can't really see them. I have to look at the Jerrytron. Yeah, at the Jerrytron there. So, but yeah, so it's different. So I understand somebody being back there going, oh, it's good, and hitting the button. And then they're like, no, it's not.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
So gonna go. I don't know what's the food of Minnesota. I've been there, but it was
Man, I don't know.
Like the best thing I had there was sushi, and I know that's not the food of Minnesota.
I have no clue. Probably like some sort of fish. It's got to be like some halibut or something, maybe.
Yeah, probably. Terrible news from Max Johnson last night, North Carolina quarterback, formerly of LSU and A&M, son of Brad Johnson. His brother Jake plays at North Carolina now too, God, he hurt his hip last night, had to go to the hospital. Hopefully it's not as bad as it looked, but it looked really bad.
Yeah, I know a lot of things were coming out like the knee, and then Mac Brown confirmed it was the hip, but like this really sucks. Like Max Johnson he's a good leader. He's somebody that you would want to rally around, and I just hate to see any injury like this. And I really feel bad for North Carolina because you've had two elite quarterbacks leading up to this. You were hoping Max Johnson could kind of be that bridge guy to carry you over. Then this happens. I don't know where you're going to go from here, but it really sucks for him overall.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we come back, let's talk about the rest of the games in the Big 12 last night. The Big 12 was the big conference that was on. I will say this. North Carolina got away with a win. NC State got away with a win too, but NC State really closed strong, and I was very impressed with Grayson McCall, and I was especially impressed with a guy who was on my, perfect football team, KC Concepcion. KC Concepcion, first-round pick, going to happen.
Baller.
He is a baller. We'll talk about that next, and then we'll kind of just roll right into Grayson Grunhafer. When he pops up on the StreamYard, Garrett, just let me know. This is 365 Sports.
Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland at Allen Samuels in Waco. Choose between 2 or 3 rows and save $12,000 or take advantage of 0% financing. Looking for something smaller? Drive home a 2024 Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4 and save $9,760 or take 0% financing and get $3,000. Don't miss out during the Make This the Summer of Jeep event at Allen Samuels in Waco, where we deliver your next adventure. See dealer for details.
Come by. Let's be friends. In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Ghost Hydration is a fully transparent, fully loaded, full-flavored hydration drink that we've all been waiting for. Ghost is caffeine-free with electrolytes, 0 sugar, and low sodium that'll hydrate your body before, during, and after your workout. Consumer loved with authentic flavors, so grab and enjoy a Sour Patch Kids Blue Raspberry and Red Berry, along with the Kiwi Strawberry, Orange Squeeze, or Lemon Lime. Ghost Hydration can truly be used anytime. Remember, it's formulated for sports, but made for life.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
When you work with a bank, you should expect the best of everything. That includes face-to-face personal service and the kind of community banking care that only comes from one neighbor to another. That's exactly what you'll get from the First National Bank of Central Texas, where you will know your banker works just as hard as you do. Once again, that's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Settle for nothing less than the first. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back. We're awaiting Grayson Gruenhafer. Just give me the thumbs up when he pops in. He's still got 5 minutes.
Yeah, he's got some time.
He's got 5 minutes. We're usually late with him. So
he's returning the favor.
I mean, it's fine. I mean, like, you know, just a little inside baseball. Kenneth Davis, we had to record that one today. So, you know, it's not like we just have to hit Peyton Socher on time. So we got a little wiggle room. All right. We don't have to go at length about some of these games. I'm going to start with bad news to good news, or like medium news. We had a question about KJ Jefferson in the chat.
Correct.
He and DJU are in the I am what I am and all that I am category at this point, I think.
Yeah, it's really kind of disappointing, and I hope KJ can turn it around. But yeah, I thought he would be more efficient. He in the past at Arkansas, he has been able to stretch the field. Now, last year was really a down year. I kind of thought that was an outlier. It was just one of those things where he didn't have the playmakers around him. But man, after that last night, I'm just not sure anymore.
Yeah. Absolutely. Whoa, what happened? Oh,
the blinded here.
Yeah. Emery, help a brother out there behind him. Get that curtain over. It's good now. Okay. But
no, it's not.
Yeah, their rushing attack is going to be lethal. Absolutely lethal. But I mean, they've got to get more out of him in the passing game. We'll see how that adjusts like week to week. Again, he's got an elite quarterback coach coaching him.
Oh, he does.
So that's the good news.
Well, he's also perfect for that ground attack. Like what they could do, and you get him rolling in an option situation, you don't want to step in front of that. And Penny Boone went off last night.
Yeah. Sure thing. He did. He went off. Penny Boone went off. RJ Harvey's already really good. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be a nightmare for a lot of people. All right, rapidly moving over to Kansas.
Yep.
Jalen Daniels didn't have to run the ball last night. Daniel Highshaw trucked a poor lady last night. I mean, not intentionally, but it happens. It happened. And that's not a guy you want to get trucked by. No. Other football players don't like tackling Daniel Highshaw. If you're just over there on the sideline, you certainly don't want it. I think she's okay.
She'll be fine.
But Devin Neal was great. Look, Devin Neal in any other conference in America would be a first-team all-conference player. In any other conference in America would be first-team all-conference. The Big 12 is just stacked at running back.
Deep.
It's so deep at running back this year when you've got Taj Brooks and Ollie Gordon and Devin Neal and
the running backs at Cincy.
Yeah, DJ Giddens, Cincy,
Donaldson and them at West Virginia.
RJ Harvey and Penny Boone, Donaldson, and this is a deep running back league. So
what did you make? So I saw the one throw that Jalen Daniels made that was just on a rope, and he looked like he didn't miss a beat.
Yeah, he did throw a pick, and I think that's just because he hasn't played against anybody.
Well, that's going to happen.
Yeah,
I mean, got to give Linwood props on that, but that's going to happen. But no, I think Jalen Daniels looked sharp last night, especially after missing the time he did last year. I just hope for everybody's sake he can stay healthy because he's so fun. And I hate when we see players come in that we never really get to see their full potential because of injuries and things. And I don't want that to be his legacy as he leaves. Just for me personally, because he's good.
By the way, I use my cup every single day. Retired stockbroker.
Oh, that's where you got that. Okay.
Yeah. Retired stockbroker. Thanks to Chris. He sent this to me.
Nice.
I think it gives tell me, does this give me gravitas? Say something to me I would have to think about. Ask me a really poignant football question.
Really poignant football question. Is the 2-minute warning necessary in college? Do you like it? Could we have done without it?
That's a good question. No, I like it. I'm fine with that.
I do like it. But I personally like it.
But did that make me seem like a more serious football commentator right there?
A little bit.
If you could have just swapped out 2-minute warning for what about the food shortage in Somalia, I'd have been like,
oh, dude, yeah.
I think I can pull that off. I think I pulled that off. All right, and then what I think is the really good news, Cam Rising and Brant Keithy are fine. They're fine. Like, again, I'm not judging on the opponent, but as far as let's see how these guys move around after being out with injuries all year round, didn't look like they missed a beat. So health-wise, keep those guys healthy. Utah's going to be a problem. And Caleb Lohner scored a touchdown. So
he's going to get a few, man.
He's going to get, he's a little interesting weapon. He scored a touchdown. The last one they scored was Caleb Lohner, a guy who's covered Caleb Lohner. Grayson Greenhafer didn't cover him playing football, but Caleb Lohner scored a touchdown for Utah last night. Grayson, I would not have picked first game out of the box as a football player, him scoring a touchdown, but hey, you never know.
Well, I mean, it certainly helps when Utah is able to roll out the second string in the very beginning of the second half. I think they even brought him out at the very end of the first half. So, I mean, they were just rolling. And obviously when those type of things happen, that's how you get those kind of crazy moments. I mean, we saw it with Baylor at times, and I'm not saying it's the same thing, but when McGowan was catching those touchdowns and those games were blowouts, it sometimes can happen. But it was pretty cool to see Lohner come in and have an impact like that in his first game. I mean, pretty special stuff, honestly. And we always knew he was a really good athlete. It just didn't quite all come together on the basketball court.
Yeah. And he I think sometimes he played basketball like he was going to play, like he was playing football. Like he's, that lack of grace in basketball doesn't matter in football. Like you need that. Like you can be very graceful, but you're going to have to run into some people. And he's pretty good at that.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And you're completely right on what you just said. I mean, he looks like if you've ever been to an open gym or whatever, and you're playing with football guys and it's just everything is 110%, but then it's like, the landings are weird. The fouls are really hard. Just everything about it is just more physical and also just a lot less graceful than if you're just your typical basketball player. And I feel like Caleb kind of got into those situations. Obviously his physicality was very wanted at times, but then it was like he'd run into someone and then he gets a foul, or trying to screen someone and it's almost like he's tackling them. Like those type of things obviously, happen when you're more of a football guy than a basketball guy, even though clearly, I mean, he's pretty good at both.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Grayson, it's finally here. Baylor versus Tarleton. We've all made our picks on SicEm365.com. I should have maybe amended mine after we found out that Tarleton's not going to be, right from the horse's mouth from Todd Whitten, found out that the quarterback's not going to be playing this week. Now, I still thought Baylor was going to win by a lot. Now, I think that probably goes up a little bit because of Tarleton probably won't be able to score with their backup in, theoretically, like they would with their starter. But this should be a good test, and I'll tell you what I'm watching for. Like I did with Kansas and Lindenwood, Colorado, like the teams last night, against these teams that you're supposed to blow out, how do you blow them out? Do you struggle at all? And is there a weakness that even a team that you shouldn't have this weakness against can exploit?
I would definitely agree with that. And I mean, I think you can make it kind of simply looking at maybe, the numbers or, the weaknesses and things like that. I think for me, though, when it comes to these matchups, it's more about, are you winning up front? For me, because I think there are other things that you can maybe, explain away. So for instance, the UCF game last night, UCF just completely dominated that game in the trenches. And so I come away just going, okay, they're going to be able to run the football. Their defense looks a lot better. So their only question mark is, what's with KJ Jefferson? Is this guy going to be extremely erratic all year long? That's the only real takeaway, I think, from the game. But if Baylor had a performance like that, I think it would really calm a lot of nerves down, because what DeQuan Finn can do, what he's going to bring to the table. But if they're establishing physicality up front on both sides of the ball, meaning they're running the football, they're stopping the run, they're not allowing a lot of pressure, I think that is a great sign going forward, and something that obviously they need to address all offseason and tried to through the transfer portal and various additions and new coaches and everything along those lines. So if they can really establish that will give me more confidence going forward into the season. And the thing of it is they're going to get tested a lot in week 2, because what I saw from Utah immediately was their defensive line is really, really good. Now, I have questions about their run game, but their defensive line is going to be very hard for anyone to run against and honestly to throw against because they do create a lot of pressure as well.
Yeah. Grayson, this is going to be our first look at DeQuan Finn. Like, legitimately, I know that you've seen some practices. We didn't have a spring game. We can go look at film in the MAC by the MAC Offensive Player of the Year from a year ago and see what he can do. But inside this offense with these players, this is the first time we're going to see him. I'm curious how much we see of the balance of throw to run with him in this game, because if Baylor can be successful offensive early, then they can maybe do like Jalen Daniels last night, where they can keep a lot of things, in the playbook for another week before they go play what is a Utah team that will be very, very, very tough to stop.
Right. And that's such an interesting question, I think, because a lot of it is game flow and what dictates you pulling the football and running it instead of handing the ball off. I watched a lot of the UCF games, so I keep bringing it up, but KJ Jefferson had to run like 11 or 12 times in that game. And then you look at, Cam Rising and you look at Jalen Daniels, and it was very clear that they were really trying to not run those guys at all. I'm curious. I actually think that Baylor's going to allow Finn to run it. I don't think it's going to be a lot of designed QB power type stuff, but I do think he's going to have the ability to keep it when he wants to. I personally think Baylor's coming into this game looking to make a statement. I do not think this is a game where they're just going to, hold things back and be, extremely vanilla. They will be some, they're going to keep some things, from film and not allow Utah to see it. But I think in general, this game is about Baylor. This game is about Baylor making a statement, getting the fans back on board, and really just creating, I think, confidence and establishing that mindset that they really need to get back to. And we've heard it all off season: edge, physicality, starting fast. I think this is a moment where they really need to prove that. And so for that reason, I think everything's going to be pretty open for Finn. I think he'll run it when he needs to. I think he'll probably make some plays with his legs. And then, hopefully we get to see him throwing the ball a little bit as well, because I think that's an area that we're all very intrigued by with these receivers.
Yeah, absolutely. Defensively, what do you expect to see more of now that Dave Aranda's calling it?
Right. I'm not really sure that it's going to be too much of a change up. I know that he wasn't calling plays, but it still was within his defensive scheme. And so I think you might see some more creativity. I think you're definitely going to see more packages because Dave Aranda has mentioned that. So subbing guys in for various roles, bringing guys onto the field who fit a particular skill set. I think you'll see that. You're going to see a ton of blitzing from the second level. That's been a Dave Aranda staple. You go through his time at LSU, Wisconsin. There are some guys that had big sack seasons from the defensive line and from the edge spot, but not that many. A lot of it is guys from the second level, and that's why we've seen so much success from Jalen Petrie blitzing the quarterback, Terrell Bernard, even Matt Jones to a certain extent. So I think you'll see a lot of that. Guys like Kendrick Simpkins, Steve Linton getting into the backfield, Matt Jones, Keaton Thomas. I think you're going to see a lot of that blitzing from the second level, allowing guys to drop back in coverage, particularly those edge players. So they're going to try to create some havoc, create some mismatches, and hopefully, I think they're thinking they're going to try to get after the quarterback and force some turnovers, because those were two areas that they were just not good at last year.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got to get better at a lot of different things, Grayson. But you are an eternal optimist when it comes to this team. You are, and that's why we love you, because when we are in the dark days over here going, this is bad, you can kind of to bend us back into maybe some more positivity. You felt maybe a little bit more confused about this team last year going in than any year since I've known you. I think that was kind of the case for all of us, because we didn't know based on how the year closed out and what was going to change and all these things. And it kind of went in nothing went right direction. This year, how do you feel compared to last year at the same time?
I think it's very different. Last year, it just was problems that even the staff just did not know that they had, which it's not really excusable, but it's just something that simply did happen. I mean, they felt good about their offensive line. They felt good about their defensive line. And then you turn around and those two positions just were really, really bad last year. I mean, and to put it simply, and they didn't address things through the portal. They tried to rely on development. It didn't work out. And, in 2022, I will stand by this. That was a good football team. And I know they finished poorly, but I'm telling you, the West Virginia game, the TCU game, it's like a play in each of those games. If it goes the other way, that's 2 more wins on the schedule. There were other games like that. That team was pretty good. They went on the road, beat Oklahoma and Norman pretty bad. I mean, they were a solid football team. Last year's team was not. Last year's team was bad. They had so many problems. It started with the offensive line. That trickled down into the inability to run the football, the inability for Blake Shapen to make throws. I mean, because he didn't have time. And a big part of that is just, that's not his forte, avoiding sacks. That never has been something that he's been good at. So I think you fast forward to this year, they really tried to address all the problems that they had a year ago. They went into the transfer portal heavily, brought in 6 transfers on the offensive line, brought in a quarterback that is extremely mobile, but more than that is amazing at avoiding sacks. And what I mean by that is Sawyer Robertson and Blake Shapen were both in the mid 20% as far as pressures turning into sacks, whereas DeQuan Finn was under 9%. I mean, he is very good at that. And so I think they've really tried to address those things. They addressed the receiver position, bringing in a veteran like Ashton Hawkins, who's familiar with the offense. And then, of course, defensively, Dave Aranda taking over as defense coordinator. I mean, I think all of that, reshaping NIL, forming the roster differently, these things are very important and are reasons why I feel like you can be more optimistic. I will also say that in the history of the Big 12, though, in recent years, it is very easy for a team to be really bad one year and then really good the next year. It happens all the time. And so I think when people talk about, Baylor going from 3-9 to a 6-win team, that's not that big of a jump. And honestly, if everything hit right, if they win every close game, if other teams have quarterback injuries, you could see more than that. And I mean, we saw that with, TCU the year they made it to the college football playoff. They faced like every backup quarterback they could have played and ended up winning 12 games. Like, these things can happen. And so if you put together a good enough roster, if you have the parts necessary and then luck goes your way in Big 12 play, you can have a very nice rebound season. And I'm expecting Baylor to rebound, not get into 8-9 wins, not winning the conference, but I do think they're going to get back to a bowl game because of the changes they made this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, like, looking at TCU, and not to downgrade their season, it was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. But when they played against Will Howard, that was they lost the game. He was the starter all year long. And JJ McCarthy was tough. That was a tough game, but they won it. And then when they played against Stetson Bennett, well, we don't have to get into the recounting the bloodbath, but yeah, it was a bit of a different thing than they had experienced all year long. So yeah, that's a really good point. And we don't know. And look, we know that after this week, the schedule is not easy for the rest of the way out. It's mostly Big 12 teams and a couple of others, but after that, there's only one other non-Big 12 game in the schedule, and it's Air Force in 2 weeks. And the rest of the schedule is Big 12 teams, even though next week is technically a non-con game. So they really need to build some momentum going into Rice-Eccles Stadium next week so that they walk in there at least with some confidence, because it's going to be hard to do anything you want to do against that Utah team, but it's going to be even harder to do it if you don't have the faith that you can if you're wonky against Tarleton.
Absolutely. They need to build the confidence this weekend. They need to have things go right. They need to see points on the board, need to see winning. I mean, winning is infectious, and they need that. And so if they can come out, start fast, have a great performance, I think that does bode well going into the Utah game. And I'll also be very clear about this. What happened last year was really tough, and there are a lot of teams that really took it to Baylor. One team that did not was Utah. And so I think Baylor probably feels like they should have won that game last year. I think most of us probably, if Sawyer Robertson doesn't get hurt, probably feel like they had a pretty good shot at winning that game. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're going to be scared about going into that matchup, but they have to have the confidence behind it and the good play behind it so that they feel good about kind of everything they did in the offseason. that allows them to go back and look at that game and feel like, hey, we let one get away last year. Let's go try to take it to Utah in this second game of the year when both teams have, a lot of confidence about the start to the season.
Absolutely. Grayson Grudenhafer, SicEm365.com. Also, you can see his podcast every single day that he and Colt do with Baylor Plus. But please, subscribe. Look, we've got the bundle going on right now of Baylor Plus and SicEm365.com. It's $17.99 a month, right?
Yeah, $17.99 a month. You get both Baylor Plus and you get a membership to Sikkim 365 Premium. And we are just dealing out the content right now. We have so much good stuff, so many creative things in the works. Jack had an amazing video that he put out today. We have all kinds of really special things that are coming, and recruiting will continue to pick up. Football, obviously, getting to recap games with Travis and Sam is going to be a lot of fun. So a very great season coming up and a lot of fun for people on Sikkim 365 Premium, and of course, Baylor Plus with all the kinds of inside access that you could possibly want.
Absolutely. Thank you, Grayson. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
That's Grayson Grudenhafer for the Bearcast as well. I forgot about that one that he has with Craig Smoke on Tuesday. So all of that is there. So if you enjoy Grayson's content, there's plenty of it on SicEm365.com, writing and videos and all of that. When we come back, Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country. This is 365 Sports.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford. Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate muscle, brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
365 Sports here on your Friday, and we're going to do this every week. We're going to go through the conferences and talk to a fellow podcaster who covers that conference and go through kind of the big news of the week. And here in week 1, we're starting out with the Big Ten and Kenneth Davis of Big Ten Country. Kenneth, first of all, great to meet you. Thanks for hopping on the show. Excited to get this going. And he does the Big Ten Country podcast, also does a Bears podcast. And so go and look those those up. They're both really, really, really good. And then when he gets his other podcast going again, I listened to some back episodes of that. He's a funny dude. You and I are like pop culture and sports guys, Kenneth. I think we're going to have that in common. So we'll probably be dropping some references as we go through this.
All right, Paul. Thank you for having me. I look forward to this, man. Let's get this going.
All right. So this is everybody's calling this the most intriguing college football season ever. This is the one, the 12-team playoff realignment. The Big Ten is now the Big 18. I mean, there's so many things. How do you think the Big Ten will morph and adjust to their new way of life? I think that a lot of the focus has been on how does Oregon and USC and the other teams fit into this thing, but how does the old Big Ten fit into this?
It's funny that you say that, you asked that question, and I think part of the issue is this. If some of the teams from the Pac-12 were as strong as they were last year, I think this would be a lot more interesting, but still the playing style is going to force traditional Big Ten teams to have to improve their scoring. Because, like, for instance, I always say this when it comes to Oregon, because that's really, if you look at the fact that, you don't have the Washington the way that they were with Michael Penix Jr., Roman Denze, of course, and just full disclosure, I'm an Alabama fan, and, losing, the head coach to Alabama. And so just like that, but you have Oregon, and it's going to be a race to 40 in some issues. And I think if you don't know about the Big Ten, that's usually not the style of play. All right. Also, I think the question will be what the traditional Big Ten schools will do out on the edges, because that's the way that a lot of these Pac-12 schools are going to try to attack your defenses. The flip side, and as you kind of pointed out, when everyone's always saying, well, what are the Pac-12 schools? One, Oregon has enough money to do whatever they want when we're talking about the trenches. So it's not going to be as hard as perhaps where SC doesn't seem like, it has the same amount of money funneling through it as it did with Pete Carroll as far as NIL deals and, getting all the transfers that you want to get in. I'm taking a wait and see approach with Washington, even though Washington has proven in the past that they can bring in a new head coach and still continue to be a pretty good program. UCLA, there's no reason for us to discuss UCLA, and I'm not trying to take a dig at them, but at this moment, there's really no reason to discuss it. But I think a school like Ohio State, that probably won't be a problem. We've discussed this on Big Ten Country, and I still think they can score with it. I wonder, will Will Howard be more of a game manager, which isn't a knock on him when you have as many weapons that Will Howard will have him at Ohio State. I wonder when you're talking about Sharon Moore and what's left at Michigan, what they will look like. Because even though sometimes we saw they didn't put the ball in J.J. McCarthy's hands, but we also know that he was extremely efficient when it came to third down conversion. So it'll be interesting to see how the old and the new adjust. But I still think that's the cream of the Big Ten. And I guess if we're saying the cream, I would still put Michigan there because I'm going to take a wait and see approach to their national champions, and I don't want to disrespect them. But if we're talking about Ohio State and then on the lower rung, Penn State, I think perhaps, and I love Drew Aller in Penn State, so I'm biased in this situation. I want to see what that offense does. I want to see if they attack the outsides, if they put the ball in his hands and let him go at it. They kind of, I don't want to say held him back last year, but they didn't want him to get in a situation where he cost them in turnovers, so they didn't let the ball fly at times. But they also didn't have the players on the outside that he can execute chunk plays like that. And it seems like they may have a better opportunity this year than they did last year. And that's also another season as Drew Aller as a starter. You would think there would be another step in improvement.
Well, let's talk about Penn State for a second. I think the game of the week for the Big 12 and not only the Big 10, because they've got USC and LSU on Sunday night, but the second game of the week for the Big 10, it is for the Big 12. It's West Virginia Penn State. It's a huge game in Morgantown for West Virginia. I mean, Pat McAfee's essentially shut down the city, doing his show there right now, and I mean, so much is weighing on this for Neil Brown, and he's got a huge chip on his shoulder. I think Garrett Green has a huge chip on his shoulder about trying to prove it. And then Penn State comes in there, a team that beats them most of the time they've played historically, including just a season ago. How big a game is this for Penn State in relation to what's going on in Morgantown right now?
I think it's a big game because it's not a cakewalk. A lot of times when you look at the fact that it's the beginning of the season and you mention it, USC's taking LSU, that's definitely not a cakewalk. But when you're talking about West Virginia, Penn State going into West Virginia and Morgantown, that's hard. And you also have the fact that we have to see what this defense is going to look like with Manny Diaz leaving to go to Duke. We have to know what this offense is going to be, which I just alluded to a second ago. I think for me, it means a lot because James Franklin has to shake off the shadows of the past. Yes, he doesn't have to go through Michigan and Ohio State, but if you want to really be that team in the playoffs, you're going to have to beat teams like that. And on the West Virginia side, as you mentioned or alluded to last year, it wasn't an easy game for Penn State. It wasn't just a simple victory. So it means a lot for them to get their season started in the proper way. I will say, and I'll just go ahead and say it, I do believe, and I said it on Big Ten Country, so it's not like I'm holding it back. I do believe Penn State will win that game. But I'm again, and I'm going to tell you guys that on here, I like Drew Aller a lot. And in that my glasses are rose colored because I haven't seen him do it. But when you look at the arm talent, when you look at the athleticism, I think that Drew Aller could be taking another step this year, and the nation could be on alert. I don't want to, again, I'm biased. So it's just, you always had those guys that you kind of like fall in love with and you hope they become what you see their potential. And he's probably number one for me right now. And also, let's not forget the fact that you have a double caller now playing the edge. Forget about the worries about coverage. Now it's, pin your ears back and get after that quarterback. And I know it's simple and it's easy comp, but if he's anything like Micah Parsons, it's going to be a long day, in Morgantown.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's going to want to come out and start to put even more people on notice as he starts to make a name for himself and try to move up draft boards and to try to become the number one defender, perhaps coming off the board in next year's draft. So I think it's going to be a tough game, but I think Penn State will be able to pull out. And I think Penn State needs to start the season. I don't know if it's going to be a resounding win, but I think that's what they should aim for to kind of set the tone of what people should expect from the Nittany Lions this upcoming season.
All right, we'll close with LSU and USC because I do want to get your opinions on Lincoln Riley, like trying to back out of this game, before and what that kind of says about maybe where he feels. But Nebraska is, in my opinion, one of the most intriguing teams in the country. We know Matt Rule real well here because we're in Waco, and he was the coach at Baylor, friend of the show. I should have we got an autograph helmet that we usually leave on set that he sent us from Nebraska. And they're rolling out with a true freshman quarterback who has a lot of moxie. Now, nobody's going to really talk about them this week against UTEP. And this is a good test. Next week they play Colorado, who, as we know last night, they won the game, but they don't look a whole lot different than they did a year ago when it comes to toughness. So in game management, as we build to that next week, what are your thoughts on Nebraska long-term through the season and maybe winning some of those close games that they lost? And Nebraska lost games because of really dumb mistakes. Like they didn't have a great offense, but even in that, their defense was so good that they would find ways to even make like fumbles look worse. Like that was their thing. Like all of a sudden, like a fumble's bad enough, but a fumble, like the way they did it was 10 times worse. The worst fumble you've ever seen. Do you think that gets tightened up? And do you think that they start making headway, not to contend for the league title, but to maybe, put a charge into some of the top teams that they play?
All right, I'll start with the turnover issues that were horrendous that you just alluded to. Look, you know Matt Rule. I haven't had an experience to meet Matt Rule. I think we all know that he's a program builder. Nebraska is a sleeping giant that I'll be honest, I never thought anyone would be able to attempt to wake it up. I do believe that Matt Rule may be waking up that sleeping giant in Nebraska. So I do think that the turnovers won't be as bad as they were last year. Now, when it comes to, and you said it, we don't expect them to be one of the best teams, but we're asking them to get to where Maryland was last year, where we knew that Maryland wasn't up there with Penn State and Michigan and Ohio State, but outside of, because remember how bad Iowa started? Iowa started bad last year, everybody, if you weren't paying attention to Iowa, right? And then, their offense was horrendous. Kirk Ferentz' son was let go. But the defense was crazy. And but the reason I'm bringing it up is because we didn't know where to place Iowa at some part during last year. So I do think Nebraska's going to start approaching that mid-level. And the question, though, to answer your question, it really depends on, and I think it may be asking a lot, who Dylan Raiola is as a freshman. You know, if it's asking a lot, but if he's a stud or has stud traits as a freshman, they're going to be better than even what we're expecting right now, because a lot of teams within the Big Ten aren't used to playing a quarterback with that type of arm talent, with that elusive ability, and and it has to transfer into college. So we're talking about a high school player, but with a magician in a way. And if he shows traits of that as a freshman, it's going to take Nebraska to a whole nother level in his tenure there. It's going to boost recruiting, because people are going to want to go and play with him. And it won't just have to be on the offensive side. It can be on the defensive side, because the defenders are going to know people are going to be watching them play, because you have this star player. So I think to get to the point that you're asking, it depends on who Dylan Raiola is. Now, when I'm saying that, I don't want to ask too much of a freshman to do something like that, but it really depends on year 2 more than year 1. But if he's a stud, a lot of people haven't seen Nebraska like back in the days, Nebraska. You know, now I'm old, but I'm not that old, so I'm talking about 90s Nebraska. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, a lot of people haven't seen when they owned college football, and that was just running the option. So it'll be interesting, but I think they have the proper head coach to run the program. I think Nebraska could really be something. I don't know exactly what there'll be this year, because I think you're asking a lot for a young and up-and-coming player to just come and set the conference ablaze. But it'll be interesting to see what he does and what Matt Rule does to take that program to the next level, because clearly he's capable of doing it.
What are your thoughts on, you mentioned Iowa, what are your thoughts on what their offense looks like? They still have Phil Parker, who's probably the best pound-for-pound defensive coordinator in maybe the last 20 years. I mean, when you can look at your defense and tell them, like, guys, we're going to get 10 points out of those clowns over there, at best, you guys are going to have to get me at least a touchdown. And they're like, all right, no problem. We got you. Like, that is next level genius coaching and ability that he has. What is their offense going to look like? And I don't expect Kirk Ferentz to all of a sudden say, I've been reading all this stuff about Mike Leach and that's where I'm going to go. But he does have to adopt some of that if he wants to be able to, down the line, however long he's got left at Iowa, you know, play USC, Oregon, Washington, Ohio State. Purdue is trying to get there, you know, with Graham Harrell and what they're doing. And those offenses are coming to the Big Ten. They've already kind of been there, but they're going to come in mass now. How do they adjust to that, knowing that even with Phil Parker, that 10 points a game might have to be like 18 or 19 points a game?
That's the key right there that you just said. They have to try to get to 20 points a game. And I can't sit on here and lie to you and tell you that I believe that's what's going to happen. I hope, because you just pointed out the defense is ridiculous. Like, I still think we take Iowa's defense for granted. It's a given that they're going to have one of the greatest defenses in the country. And if they only had an offense that can score 20 to 25 points, they would be contending. I wouldn't have them as a favorite, because I still believe in this state of college football, you have to at least get up to 30 points, regardless if you have a good defense, because even good defenses have bad days unless Kirby Smart is the head coach. But I don't know. We always know that it's tight end you, and they seem to always kind of have issues with getting guys to execute on the outside and getting big chunk yards. I mean, that's really the question. And Paul, I can't sit here and tell you that it's going to happen. I would be lying to you. I have to actually see the season really start to. I have to see 3 games at least to know if it's trending towards it's a competent offense. Because if they have a competent offense, I mean, they could be in the playoff. Like, if they have a competent offense, if Iowa has a competent offense, we will all feel like we neglected talking about them this offseason, because clearly they have a great chance to get into the playoffs, even though you just talked about that schedule. That schedule is a juggernaut, basically. So that will probably be a hiccup as far as really getting it done this season. But I have to see it, Paul, man, because I'm of course I host a Big Ten show, so I'm biased on that, but I'm not an idiot. And they haven't been able to show us that they can be competent on the offensive side. And I'm really going to take a wait and see approach to answer your question.
Yeah. All right. LSU, USC. Let's dive into this one for a little bit before we go. And then I'm going to ask you your opinion on a couple of kind of like random things around the country. You did mention Alabama, and I want to get into that too. All right. LSU, USC. Lincoln Riley tried to back out of this game. Like he kind of telling USC, like, do we have to go to Vegas and play LSU? Which makes me wonder how confident he is in this iteration of his team right now, especially bringing in Danton Lynn and trying to straighten out the defense, that he maybe doesn't want to start out 0-1, which is, as we know, 0-1's not as big a deal now as it used to be. But it does make me wonder about what they're going to be. Their quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner, is now, you're doing a podcast where you're going to talk about him every day. Like, Caleb Williams is now your main subject on your Bears podcast. And he does not have that anymore. Miller Moss looks like he's very talented. Yes. And he waited his turn, like most guys don't anymore in college football. But it feels like there's a little bit of cautious optimism around USC, but they are trying to be realistic about where they are as they transition into a new conference.
I think I don't like anybody trying to back out of anything.
Yeah.
But I honestly, I don't think USC should want that LSU smoke at this point. We'll still see what Miller Moss can do, but I'll say this right now, and he can prove me wrong. And again, I do have a Bears podcast. But, to say that you want him to be what Caleb was, and then you mentioned it defensively with bringing Lynn in. The defense last year was abysmal. It made a lot of it created a lot of the reasons outside of not having Jordan Addison, a lot of the reasons why Caleb had more turnovers than he had his previous seasons. So I have to see it. Lincoln Riley, we all know, is definitely a crafty offensive mind, but you still need the studs to get it done. And now you're entering outside of LSU. And look, I'll tell you, we did our predictions on Big Ten Country. I have LSU winning that game. Outside of LSU, you're entering the Big Ten, and this is where big men play. And you're going to have to be able to stop the run, and you're going to have to be able to run that football. And if you can't do either one of those, it's not good. It will help if Miller Moss is nice, but it's not going to matter as much because you're going to get your face smashed in. And I do think after time, perhaps Lincoln Riley can get them over the hump. But I mean, what happened at USC last year for someone who all last season, unfortunately, had to talk about Caleb Williams perhaps being the Bears quarterback. But what you didn't expect them to kind of fall on their faces like they did in the second season of Lincoln Riley's tenure as the head coach. So I have to see it. I have to see if Jaden Lynn can get the defense to play in the way they need to play. But I also have to see if, you have better receivers that can help Miller Moss get the game down and how competent they are in the run game, because that's going to mean a lot if they're going to have any success this upcoming season.
Absolutely. All right, let's get your just kind of rapid fire thoughts on a couple of things. You mentioned Alabama. You're a Bama fan. Kalen DeBoer goes down there. Now, it takes a special person to not blink at the opportunity to replace the GOAT. And a coach now that the playoff has changed, we're probably never going to see a Nick Saban again. 12-team playoff means that the Nick Saban, kind of a thing, that's over. That's done because it's just the math won't work out the same way. Your thoughts on him? Jalen Milroe, second full year as a starter, and looked like he hit a stride down the stretch. They will not have the kind of crazy depth they had, but it's not like they're starting from scratch.
Why? Well, just stab me. All right. If that's what you wanted to do, just when you said the depth part, it hit my soul when you said that. I talked to Jalen Milroe last year. Outstanding young man. Great head on his shoulders. It'll be interesting to see what Kalen DeBoer does with him. Kalen DeBoer, now it's not with Michael Penix Jr., but in the past he's had quarterbacks that have some of the qualities as far as versatility that Jalen Milroe has on the offensive side of the ball. You mentioned it. A part of me, and it's funny, My producer at NBC Sports is a close friend of mine, Tony Gill, and he's an Alabama fan. And I've been telling Tony for years that because he would get mad at everything, and like if Alabama didn't win this year, and like years when we would steal it, like a few years ago, and I'm like, oh, we just stole a championship. This is so great, right? And but I would tell him enjoy this because the empire is coming to an end. You can see it, and you mentioned it as far as just with the 12-team playoffs, but also we also talked about NIL, transfer portal. Like that's another reason Nick Saban was ready to go outside of it. It was just time for him to step away. And so that's going to cost Alabama a lot. But I think Kalen DeBoer is one of the best coaches in the country. And the fact that he decided to be the man after the man, because we grew up here and you don't want to be the man after the man. You want to be the man after the man after the man because you're standing in such a large shadow. But you're talking about one of the most confident minds offensively in college football in Kalen DeBoer. So I'm hoping. I'm still right now. I'm kind of taking a wait and see from the point of my heart is really involved in that, right? And it's like, why not enjoy still my memories while they're fresh of what Nick Saban did, than to jump in deep, and it may be a little rocky for a little while. And I still want to kind of enjoy what Saban did, as you said, being the GOAT and just taking it. You know what? It goes back to the Nebraska thing, right? Like I'm an Alabama fan because my side of the family that raised me, my father, my grandmother, my granddad, they're all from Alabama. And so my dad is the reason that I'm into sports or whatever. And he used to tell me, stories about Bear Bryant growing up and stuff like that. So, but during my life, outside of maybe a year when Bill Curry was there and I wasn't even into sports, Alabama really hadn't been Alabama. And I'm honestly, I never expected Alabama to be anywhere near where Bear Bryant had Alabama, right?
Yeah.
So what Nick Saban did, I didn't expect to happen, and he did it way grander than I could have expected. So I just appreciate those years of talking trash to people. And like you said, like I think they didn't have championships like this, but like one of the last blue bloods. I'm sorry, I didn't get to the Nebraska part. It's the Nebraska part is Nebraska's one of those blue blood giants that's been dead that you never expected to come back, and maybe Matt Rule would do that. But I'll end on this. The closest thing we had seen was what Pete Carroll did by rejuvenate USC. And that wasn't on the same level what Nick Saban did at Alabama. And we saw the years over like 3 different spans where, the University of Miami has been able to come back. But that still wasn't under one coach with what Nick Saban did at Alabama. I hope Kalen DeBoer can keep it close to what it was. I don't expect it to be, as you mentioned, one with the playoffs, but just in general, what Nick Saban did at Alabama is an outlier. Like that's the thing. Like it's an outlier. It's not common, even before there was a playoff. It's not common that someone could do that. Not really in our lifetime. Maybe when we were closer to kids, but not a run like that where you were getting that many times. You were happy if your team over a 7-year period had 2 national titles and it was in the running for another 2. That was a great run. So it's been a great time, and I'm not going to answer your question because I don't want to think about it.
You know what? That's an ender right there. I love it. Kenneth, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship here. Really enjoyed having you on. We'll talk to you again next week. Really appreciate you getting back to me. This was fun. Kenneth Davis, everybody. Kenneth, tell everybody where they can find you, Big Ten Country, Bears, all of that.
All right. So, of course, on YouTube, NBC Sports Chicago, you can watch Under Center podcast. That's our Bears-centric podcast. And Big Ten Country is our Big Ten podcast. I'm on that with James Naveau. On the Under Center podcast, I'm on there with our Bears beat reporter Alex Shapiro and our Bears insider Josh Schrock. All great guys. You can follow me at That's Davis. Paul, I appreciate it. Great times. I look forward to talking to you next week.
Kenneth Davis with us. We're going to talk Big Ten every Friday. This is 365 Sports.
At Genco, our goal is to build long-lasting relationships while providing complete financial solutions for each step of life's journey. Our members enjoy fewer fees, lower rates on loans of all types, and higher yields on a wide variety of savings options. That's just a small part of the credit union difference. Visit Genco online, on Facebook, or come by one of our 5 locations today. Apply online for membership. Genco FCU, NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
My money, my future, my credit union, Genco.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
We're smokeless today, but that doesn't mean we're not going to have guests, and we welcome a new friend to the show, Peyton Socher of Rankings Right Now. And Peyton, you reached out to me a few weeks ago, and we started talking. You have started Rankings Right Now, and it's a new website that I said earlier in the show when I was kind of introducing you. I said, you know, I have to like vet these things and check them out. I was like, well, let's see how he's doing compared to like other people who do the same thing. There's nobody who does the same thing that you're doing right now, and it's an idea that probably should have been done. So how did this get started with Rankings Right Now? And this is a great time to start it now that 12 teams matter in the rankings more than 4.
Right, exactly. And I felt the same way when I kind of stumbled into the idea. My dad went to Michigan State, so I was born brainwashed thinking that everything about Michigan State's the greatest thing ever. And in 2021, I was watching in week 12, Michigan State was playing Ohio State, and it was a big matchup. They were both top 10 teams at the time. Week 12, we're getting close to the college football playoff. And at halftime, Ohio State was beating Michigan State 49-0. And I'm just sitting there devastated on the couch, like realizing that the national championship is completely out of reach now. The game is over. And my wife kind of as a teaser to me said, are they even going to be ranked in the top 25 anymore? And it kind of just got me thinking, like, that's a really good question. Like, I wonder if anyone even does anything of this kind of nature. So I went online. I didn't see anything that really aligned with what I was thinking. And my background's in analytics and machine learning, and I kind of thought this might be a fun little project to do. And it took me about 2 years really to get the algorithm right and to get it into a point where I felt like, you know what, this actually might enhance my viewership of college football as the games are going on. Rankings are such a weird thing with college football, and I think really, if you think of any type of rankings, you kind of know what the playoffs are going to look like for the NFL, the MLB, the NBA. college football is the only one, and college basketball and college athletics, that you have a panel of people that make this decision. And as we saw with Florida State last year, they can decide however they want to decide. So it makes it so much more interesting and fun when you have a insight on based off of historical data of this is how they tend to vote. Maybe this is what you can expect going into the next release of the poll of the AP poll or the College Football Selection Committee, whoever it may be. So that's kind of how it got going. And then finally it got to a point where I was like, I want to share this with everybody and really make it more enjoyable for the college football fan.
Yeah, and it's really good stuff. You sent me kind of the first wave of this season. Florida State obviously involved in it. So a top 10 team that's projected and we've got a couple different graphics here. We couldn't fit a couple of them on, and we'll get to those in a second. But so for Florida State now, let's look at the top 10 team. They're 0-1. Now, their likelihood obviously has gone down. So how does your machine work at projecting for me, a person whose all his joy is wrapped up in them, what their future holds?
So right now, our algorithms are showing that as of right now, rankings right now, meaning this is what we project is going to happen here when the next release of the poll is going to happen. They're sitting at about 22. They were 21 yesterday until Kansas decided to obliterate Lindenwood, 500-0, whatever it felt like. So they're sitting at 22 right now. So I think they'll be somewhere in that 20 range. Predicting week 2 is the hardest by far. No one knows anything, right? We're all coming in fresh. Everyone thinks that they have a good idea of what to expect from their team. Everyone's opinions change immediately once you see that first quarter. Think of, whether it be CU or Michigan State or Florida State, your opinions immediately change because you just don't know what each season's going to bring. So week 2 by far is the most unpredictable. As we get a little bit further into the season, it becomes a little bit more stable and a little bit more understanding. But as of right now, assuming that Florida State beats Boston College this weekend, they're looking at somewhere in the low 20s.
All right. So as you project out this week, or like this week, you did a lot of what ifs on rankings right now.
That's right.
So particularly around the game that Garrett, who's an LSU fan, we're watching the most, USC and LSU. So what are your what ifs on USC and LSU?
So as of right now, LSU is projected to beat USC. And I think the projection of that score, if I can find it real quick, it says LSU is supposed to beat USC 34-30. That's according to Vegas, right? So since we have this algorithm, you can play around in what if scenarios to say, well, what would actually happen if USC had the upset and we just flipped the scores? So if we go ahead and play around with that, we switch around a couple of scores, we let USC win that game. Now you're looking at right there where USC pops up to 14 and LSU drops down to 21. So this is the fun of this algorithm is, that field goal at the very end of the game that just missed, you can go ahead and go back into this algorithm and say, well, what would have actually happened if they had nailed that 40-yarder? And what would the rankings look like if that were to come? We as fans are only limited to these poll releases after all of the games have happened. So you don't really have a full understanding of, well, if I would have asked that poll in the middle of that game when we were winning, how would they have ranked us? We don't know as fans anymore. And that's what this algorithm's trying to uncover, give you a little bit more entertainment value in that. So that's what, if USC beats LSU, that's what the algorithm is expecting in terms of ranking conditions.
All right. I mean, so when they go the site, you have a lot of data you can plug in, so you can find out for whoever. And how long did it take you to get this algorithm and everything built?
2 years, 2
oh
plus.
My gosh.
Just playing with it, and with a lot of side projects, whatever you want to call it, you think it's going to be a piece of cake and how hard could this possibly be?
Yeah.
Until 5 minutes in, you're like, okay, there's a reason why this might not exist right now, because it's very complicated. So I started with one algorithm, led into another one, and now I have algorithms stacked upon algorithms. And finally, about February of this year, I finally was able to show my wife and show the side-by-side comparisons of what really happened next to what we predicted was going to happen. And they were good enough that I felt confident sharing it with other people. So 2.5 years probably to finally get this right to the point where this feels like it's realistic. And I hope I will continue to work on this algorithm and try and find better ways to come up with more accurate solutions.
I can't wait. I might make a pick'em and risk that, like, a week of the 10 games that we pick on pick'em. I'm going to do, because you also have a cool thing of the projected scores of every week.
Yeah.
I'd like to run that through the games that we pick. Maybe I'll even just do it next week and
you can do that. Yeah.
Run it through and see how it goes. And see, maybe do it multiple weeks. But for example, Notre Dame and A&M, you have A&M winning that game 25-22, which if I sent that to College Station right now, they'd be like, "Oh, please, please."
Yeah.
God, don't be Catholic.
Vegas favors them right now. It's crazy right now.
Yeah. God, don't be Catholic tomorrow. But that would be huge. Yeah. Vegas favors them. They're home. Like there's a lot of unknowns here. For example, you have a very close game with LSU and USC at 34-30. And there was another surprising one. Penn State and West Virginia. You have Penn State not covering at 8.5 right now at 29-21. Mm-hmm. But for that one, for West Virginia, what would happen if West Virginia wins that game?
Let's just run it right now. Hold on.
Okay.
I think I can go ahead. What do you want the score to be?
Let's just say West Virginia flip the score. Well, let's say it's 28-24.
28-24, West Virginia wins. Let's go ahead and run that simulation. If that happens, we have Penn State dropping down to 18. It does not look like West Virginia sneaks into the top 25. Now, that's the most difficult part that I was talking about, especially with week 2. You don't 26 through 130. No idea, right?
Yeah.
Are they in the 70s? Are they in the 40s? How do they now? If West Virginia really comes out and blows them out of the water, that might make everyone stop and think, these people actually, they've proven something here.
Yeah.
But for sure, I have more confidence in saying Penn State will drop down to those late teens and around that 18-20 area, which I think everyone can kind of nod and be like, that's realistic, versus saying West Virginia won't make the top 25. That I'm unsure of, but that's what we're looking at right now with West Virginia with that upset.
Well, for example, your projected rankings for next week. Look, Georgia Tech's not in, they're 24th right now. But that didn't benefit their win over Florida State. Didn't benefit them as much as it hurt Florida State. So the same thing would happen for West Virginia that it would for Penn State.
Same thing, same exact thing. There's an equilibrium to the beginning of the year of what, hey, we don't really know. So you against you, that's kind of an even matchup. And I think we all kind of agree right now when it's early in the season, and really as the season goes on, it's any given Saturday, right? Anyone can be anybody, and it's a coin flip. Now, when we ran our simulations for the week, we really saw that, for example, Georgia has roughly an 81% chance of staying at the number 1 seed. Why is that? Well, Georgia against Clemson, they're giving Clemson a 20% chance of winning. Vegas, according to the Vegas odds, it's about an 80-20 split between Georgia winning and Clemson winning. So there are weird scenarios where Georgia doesn't stay at the number 1 seed because they don't look good or they fall down a little bit, whatever that case may be. So even on really Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, they're kind of playing cupcakes this week. So they're probably going to stay there. There's nothing that's really going to, we can tell that's a true mismatch. But even for something like Penn State and West Virginia, that's kind of a 60-40 split maybe. No one's really leaning heavy on Penn State thinking that that's not going to be a close game.
Yeah. This is all just really cool stuff. And let me put up the website in our chat for people, because we have, look, I'll tell you, we've got some nerds, buddy. We've got some nerds. And
I love it.
I say that word is never an insult to me.
Oh, no, no. When you're a kid, that's an insult. As you get later in life, someone calls you a nerd, you kind of take that with a badge of honor.
It means you have passion. It means you have
probably a better way.
It means you have commitment to something.
Right.
That's what it means. So to get all this, and I'm thinking about it just from the input perspective. Like you said, it took 2 years. Going back historically in, trying to put a number on why things, like you said, are human things. Like, here's what happens when these are. That had to maybe even take you. Did you have to take walks and stuff to be like, man, this is hard to take from human being emotion to math and correlate it.
You try and take as much human out of it. There is human component in it. If anyone were to tell you going into last year, Florida State is going to be undefeated, they're going to win their conference, are they making the playoff? It's a no-brainer, yes.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it be? It didn't happen because people have emotions and opinions, and it's not just about where somebody is ranked. Now, this year, it eases the tension a little bit with that 12-game playoff, but there is a human component that you can't take out of it, and I will never be able to take out of it. But a majority of the variance of data, a very nerdy way to say that, is can you grab as much of it as you possibly can to explain why these things are happening? Long walks, yes. And just the fun thing to really do when you're building these algorithms is you don't look at your best picks, you look at your worst ones and say, why would that happen? And then you try and dig and uncover and really figure out this is exactly why that team didn't make it. Well, what's really interesting, going back to that Florida State example, is I played around with that a ton and said, could we have predicted that? And one of the things that I found in the what if simulator is if you have Louisville winning that game against Florida State last year, the rankings look almost identical to what actually happened in reality. So there's the human element right there. The people on the college football selection committee poll viewed that as a loss. It was their opportunity to say, prove it to us that you can beat this team without a real quarterback behind under center. And they didn't do it. And so how my algorithm treated that, if you go in the what if and have them losing that game to Louisville, it's almost identical to what you actually saw in reality. So to me, it helps explain some of the human emotion behind it too, and say we can't put a number on it, but we can maybe go into the minds of what these people are thinking while they're actually creating these polls. And according to the College Football Selection Committee, when they made that poll, they treated it like an FSU loss, not a win, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, well, it's totally crazy. It's insane. Right. It is. I mean, my theory is Greg Sankey found, the minute that Jordan Travis kicked his leg up in the air and you were like, well, that's it for him. He's like, well, there's my narrative right there. Right. And then he just kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And then other people kind of pick up on it. And then they go in and like, well, we got to see if they can do this. And you're like, well, you've never actually applied the same logic to anyone else ever.
Correct.
And so when it happened, again, they treating a win like a loss. I will tell you the only other time it did happen is, and this is one that we lived here in Waco, was Baylor beat TCU, lost to West Virginia, and they didn't get blown out by West Virginia. They just lost to a mediocre West Virginia team on the road in Morgantown, and then. Because the Big 12 was like, well, no, I know TCU has a loss and it's to Baylor, but their loss is better than Baylor's loss. And you're like, well, hold on a minute. Wait a minute. Let's just go back here. Their loss is to Baylor. So if the value at a win and a loss is +1, -1, but a loss to it, just even, right? So if they both lost to West Virginia, they both would have gotten a -1.
Exactly, and you can go even deeper into strength of schedule. It's never ending. You're never you can never really pinpoint it. Same thing happened a couple years ago in that 2021 season that Kenneth Walker III ran for 5 touchdowns against Michigan. Then the next week, Michigan State lost to Purdue, I want to say, and Michigan won. And then when the next release of the rankings came out, Michigan was ahead of Michigan State. And everyone just said, but like 2 weeks ago, Michigan State just beat Michigan. Why would they? It's just the way that they kind of felt about it. And same thing with the FSU thing. If you look at the transcripts, which once again, complete nerd diving into this thing, I'm reading what they're saying about why they ranked the way that they did. And they have these transcripts available for anyone who didn't know. Yeah. And what they said about Florida State was, well, it's a weird year. There's like 5 or 6 really good teams, which is true. If you look at the previous years prior to last year, there's like 3, maybe 4 solid teams that no one will dispute. Last year, there was 5 or 6. You have Texas and Alabama who are at 7 or 8 going into that the finals or their conference championship. They're sneaking all the way in because they still have a stellar resume. If Texas doesn't loses that game against Kansas State where they nailed a field goal at the very end, I don't think that Florida State has anything to worry about at that point because you're not going to allow that to happen. That would be insane. But maybe I'm wrong. It's a human element to this. And we the United States, college athletics, whatever you want to call it, this is the only place where this happens. You know what's going to be the outcome. Could you imagine if in Kansas City, if Mahomes got hurt, they said, hey, we're really sorry, but we're going to put the Broncos in because you without Mahomes is not the real thing anymore. That would be absurd, but this is how we're stuck with in college football because you have these weird conferences and strength of schedule. So it's all over the place, but that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Peyton Socher, rankings right now. Go to the website, log in, create it. It's awesome. It's great. Peyton, we're gonna do some like check-ins with you. Like we'll go through things once we have like let's get some numbers in there so we're not even though that's what you do, but like let's see that so we know where to ford the river, so to speak. But Peyton, really enjoy this segment. Garrett has been glued to this.
Yep.
Yeah,
I've been nerding out myself.
I love it.
So
please, any feedback that you guys have. It's a brand new website. I'm open to anything. I want your experience to be enhanced and enjoy it and make it fun. It's eye candy. This isn't going to change anyone's lives. This is to make it more fun and to add another context to the conversation when people talk about college football.
Yeah, absolutely. Peyton, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon, buddy.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Peyton
Socher, rankingsrightnow.com. When we come back, I guess we can get to Mickey a little early. Or do you want to let's what have we not talked about from last night yet, Garrett?
From last night.
We did not talk about NC State. A little bit. They were very they were very good down the stretch.
That was the one.
Grayson McCall was got better as the game went on. And I guess maybe I'm a closet like Jamie Chadwell, like Coastal Carolina.
No, you've been telling everybody about Chadwell.
Yeah, but maybe I'm a closet like Coastal Carolina fan. Maybe I like the Chanticleers. Maybe I do.
It's a pretty dope mascot.
Yeah. I'm surprised, like, whatever happened with Grayson McCall and his transfer a year ago, I don't know. I think it's unfortunate that he didn't get to that opportunity to have 2 years possibly in the Power 4, Power 5, you know. I know there was something with Auburn and like something with Florida, and it didn't work out.
Well, I mean, sometimes that could be like a degree plan or something. It just doesn't line up. We've seen that. There's so many little weird things with trying to transfer credits and different things. There's no telling what all got clogged up the pipeline in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but he was very good last night, I thought. Like he really got in a rhythm. He's super athletic. He's fun to watch. He's a really good, I don't know if he's going to be an NFL guy at all.
Probably not, man.
Probably not. Like, it's hard to say. Like, I wouldn't have said that about Brock Purdy either. So now on the Brock Purdy standard, I'm just going to say like
the Brock Purdy standard.
On the Brock Purdy standard, I have no idea like what his future holds. Like, I would say he's probably not going to like fall into that like Brock Purdy did. These damn crickets are running
They're
around
everywhere. Yeah, it's frustrating.
It's scary. I thought it was a roach for a second. It's still almost as gross. But I really do like him. I hate that he's NC State because I think that means that it's just harder for,
So, after seeing that offense and seeing what Florida State's defense did that change or skew any perspectives? You still kind of you need to see more from the Noles?
Here's, yes, I do. But let me check. Florida State's schedule is really tough this year. It's tougher than it was last year. In spite of Sandra Green posted Florida State was they had a cake schedule and lucky to beat BC. And I'm like, well, Texas was lucky to beat Houston, who wasn't good last year.
God, yeah.
Washington was lucky to beat Wazoo and several other non-bowl teams. Arizona State, they're lucky to beat Arizona State. That was a close game.
Oregon was lucky to beat Tech.
Oregon was lucky to beat Tech. Bama was lucky to beat Auburn and USF. So let's not get into that. College football is different now. College football is different. Everybody just expecting blowouts all the time. The portal exists.
That's what that has balanced out things. These smaller schools or these group of 5 schools, the talent that they're able to get in.
They have people that are athletically good enough to be at USF has a bunch of guys that could play in the that are athletically good enough to play in the SEC. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, it did not work out for them.
Well, I also think it's not just that.
So maybe they're not polished enough, but that means that when Alabama's playing USF now, they're playing maybe 10 guys that they would see as opposed to 1 in past years.
Well, I also think it goes back to the COVID year and how high school recruits were lost in the shuffle.
You have older players.
Well,
a ton of older players.
But if you have these kids who were typically get recruited by your powerhouse programs or your G4 schools, and their rosters were retained with older players, then you had these group of 5 schools, these other smaller schools that were still able to recruit those high school players and get a more elite caliber in those classes than they would typically. And you're starting to see those they're your upperclassmen, and then you're adding through the portal. It kind of evens the playing field a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, we take a small pause from college football, and we welcome in our good friend Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. There's a lot of drama in the Cowboys going on right now, and Mickey's here to help guide us through all of it. This is 365 Sports.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Thank you so much once again to Peyton Socher, who was just on rankingsrightnow.com. We're going to have him on frequently Not every week, because again, like after this week, what do we know?
Let the data build.
Everybody's either 0-1, 1-1, or 1-1. So like they're or 0-2. There's going to be some teams that'll be 0-2. I mean, I hope
one might be on Monday night.
Yeah, no, let's not get confident before I say fight on Trojans there, Garrett.
Okay.
I'm with you, win or tie, but like if you're going to talk noise, you're just mad because 0-2 the last 2 years against that
I'll let
squad.
I'll let you have that.
Yeah. A guy who last night had a great night, Mickey Spagnola, who's a Mizzou grad, and Mizzou, took care of business and what they should have. Mickey, before we get into Cowboys, is this as excited as you might have been for a Mizzou season for a while?
Well, let's kind of calm down. It was Murray State, and they covered the spread by 1 point.
Okay.
It was 50. It was 50. But they've got some good players. You get a quarterback that's coming back. It's pretty exciting. I can't remember the last time they would have opened the season ranked number 11 in the nation.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, look, there's reason to be excited. I mean, the SEC's tough. Everybody's got a tough schedule, But Brady Cook, Luther Burden, they're good all the way around. So it should be a fun season for the Tigers. Now to the Cowboys. How much do you make of what seems like when you're just watching a 30-second or a minute clip of Dak Prescott's it was a little more frustrated than maybe we've heard him, but that's just me on the outside watching a 30-second clip, or is he more frustrated with having to answer about it constantly in the contract?
I think it's probably more the latter than the former. Because, in training camp, he sort of avoided it. He didn't want to answer the questions. And I think at some point, he wishes it would go away, meaning something would get done. I think when you're listening to some of the comments without actually seeing the video, and I could pick one out, when somebody asked him, well, what do you think about what Jerry said about this or that? And he kind of said with a half smile, I've given up listening to what he tells the media. I don't pay attention to it. And there's some truth to it. It was funny, but it's also, in comedy, there's also a little sliver of truth in the comedy, right? But he was smiling. Now, if no one wrote that there was a smile there when he said it, because he knows Jerry says, and not just pertaining to him, says some other things that, are, I guess we could qualify them as outrageous. So, yeah, I don't know that he's sitting at home fretting this. But again, here's the deal, Paul. We don't know what they're asking for. And we probably don't know what the Cowboys are offering. So it's a two-way street. And the reason, they're kind of in this situation where there's a no trade and no franchise tag available for next year. Well, that's what they wanted, right? The Cowboys probably didn't say, hey, we wish you wouldn't take a franchise tag, right? So they had to know that at some point there might have been a possibility that he would have to go to play somewhere else, just like a lot of other veteran quarterbacks, right? So I think, look, they're not minimizing how good he is. What they're trying to minimize is the impact against the salary cap that is real. And a lot of these other teams that signed their quarterbacks to these big deals didn't have other guys they had to pay this type of money. Let's see what happens in San Francisco when Purdy wants $60 million a year. And they have about 3 guys right now that are close to the top of their position. So it's difficult. And that's why the Cowboys are kind of, I don't know that they're dragging their feet. They're just trying to get to a number that they can manage.
Mickey, I think because I've tried to find the middle ground between the way the Cowboys seemingly always do this with like pushing, Jerry loves the deadlines make deals thing. I think with Dak, it makes maybe a little bit different sense than it does with CeeDee Lamb, who they kind of knew what the deal was going to be, and unless like CeeDee's agents were like,
wait,
they
let's
knew.
hold up
like,
there.
They could have.
What was the deal?
Look,
what were they asking for?
I mean, the market was
what
the
were
market,
they asking for?
But the market was the market.
They were, okay, but Paul, if that's the market and I'm the agent, then that's the bottom.
Yeah.
I want more, and let them tell me no.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't know that they weren't asking for $40 million a year. And if you were the agent, wouldn't you have done that?
I mean, yeah, I would have. I would have.
And then let them say no, right?
Yeah.
And even if the market was 35, it ended up 34. I think what everybody doesn't understand is every $1 million against the cap is important. And if you look at the contract, as it turned out, the final year base salary is not guaranteed, and it's $28 million. So if you look at the real guarantees, that contract averages $30.8 million a year. If you're not counting that last year that is not guaranteed. So and that's what the other players did the same thing. If you look at Justin Jefferson, it's the same thing. He's got a huge base salary at the end that blows up the total, but it's not guaranteed. So if you get to that and you're not earning it, you're gone. So I think we get carried away with the average when you got to look inside the numbers to see what it was. And here's how Dak Prescott's contract is different than market value. The young quarterbacks that signed, this was their second contract. So they were able to stuff some of that money into the last year, their fifth year option, which wasn't much, right? The base salary for your first contract is not very much. The Cowboys can't do that because Dak's counting $55 million already against the cap this year. And if he's not on the team next year because of the restructured contracts, it's going to cost him $40 million. So whatever his number is, add $40 million to it because they still got to count for the restructure bonus. So what I try to explain is this is complicated. It's not as easy as that's the market, sign them. Okay, what's the market? Is it $60 million? Well, then add $40 more million to it over the length of the contract. And so now it's probably $70 million. Okay, that's why it's difficult.
Yes, and I'm hearing you. I do have a follow-up, though, and why are the Eagles not stressing this with their contracts like the Cowboys do?
I just told you. That was his second contract. Mm-hmm. It's not his first.
Yeah.
And you can dump money. You can give him a big signing bonus and dump it over 5 years. Because these contracts end up, those guys, it ends up 5 years. The fifth year that they're in right now counts. And if you put that into what the total of the extension is, then it's not that much. You can't do that with Dak because his last year of the contract, he's counting $55 million. You can't stuff another $10 million into that. They only got $12 million left. That's why it's difficult. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's difficult when you're looking at numbers. You got to look at the real numbers, not the artificial agent numbers.
Yeah, I think I'm just maybe, I think like most people, confused about why the process seems different for the Cowboys than it does for a lot of other teams. And they do it differently.
I don't think it's different. I don't think it's different. What's going on in Cincinnati right now?
Yeah, they've got Jamar Chase. Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Right. Well, what was going on with Justin Jefferson? That got strung out. Mm-hmm. And they finally got it done. It happens. What's happening in San Francisco with Trent Williams?
Yeah.
That's their starting left tackle, and he hasn't been to training camp. So that got stretched out because they know they had to pay IU. They've already paid Deebo Samuel. And you know what? Around the corner, how much do you think Purdy's going to ask for? So it's not all about this year. It's about the next year and the next year. And what made me think of this was next year, CeeDee Lamb's cap hit is $34 million. Now, they're going to have to restructure that and push restructure bonus down the road. Well, at some point, that restructure bonus comes back to bite you. Take Zach Martin. They gave him a raise last year. They did some restructures on his contract. He's in the last year of his contract. If he's not playing next year, he costs $17 million in dead money because of the restructure bonuses. So this stuff is real. And the projection on the cap for next year is only going up $5 million. That's a drop in the bucket. So you've got to be careful on where you spend your money to have enough money to pay the rest of your team.
So, Mickey, as the 53 is now finalized, well, not finalized. Nothing's ever finalized. For today.
Yeah, for today.
But we kind of have an idea of where they're starting the season, more or less. You know, outside of an injury, nothing major is going to swing this roster right now. You know, the things that happen are mostly minor. What to make of Dalvin Cook to the practice squad and bringing him in, and overall, what were your thoughts on, did anything surprise you one way or the other of a guy making the team or not making the team?
The surprise part, I don't think so. Now, I'll be interested to see what happens. And you mentioned Dalvin Cook on the practice squad. So he hadn't played any football since, January?
Yeah.
He played in one of the preseason games. Postseason games. I don't think he played in the second one. He hasn't been to training camp. So if you put him on the 53, you're basically wasting a spot at this point because he's got to ramp up. So you put him on the practice squad and you get a better idea of what he is, what he got, and it's only costing you $21,000 a week. So I see no harm in that. I don't know that they're counting on it, but it's like, okay, let's take this chance. I'm sure Mike Zimmer vouched for Dalvin Cook the way he probably vouched for Kendrick, which I think was a very important signing. These guys, they need to get bigger inside. I understand that, and they've done that. But now, can these guys play? Because they're not going to be 50 snap a game players. They're going to be part of it. Right now, the Dalvin Cook thing, it's almost like a free look. Okay, let's see what he's got. Because he didn't have anything last year. Now, that might have been the Jets' problem. They had a poor offensive line, and he didn't really get much of a chance after Aaron Rodgers went down. That's another one. We'll see. It's kind of this team's full of unknowns going forward, which you don't like to start a season.
Do you think that signing him is an indictment on anything that they saw in the running back room, or just, might as well? I mean, again, that's by committee. You might as well take this chance, like you said.
I thought it was taking advantage of opportunity.
Yeah.
Because for those of us that were at training camp and saw Ezekiel Elliott, that saw Rico Dowdle, there was nothing wrong with their running game. Those guys looked really good. And let's remember, you're going to add to that running game Kevontae Turpin and CeeDee Lamb. Because if you remember last year, several times they lined up CeeDee in the backfield and handed him the ball or pitched him the ball. And the same thing with Turpin on end around. So that kind of adds to the running game. But don't discount. Now, I may be wrong, and in 3 months you're going to come back and tell me I'm stupid. But Zeke looked really good in practice. He looked really good in the scrimmages that they had against the Rams. Now, is he going to bust 50 and 60-yard runs? No, probably not. But I'll guarantee you he can hit a hole and make a guy miss or run somebody over. And their biggest problem last year in the running game was the fact that when they got inside the red zone, they didn't have anybody with power to put the ball in the end zone, especially when they were inside the 10-yard line. So I think if that's all he gives them maybe 5 more touchdowns than they had last year.
Mickey, now that CD's back, do you expect to see it be Brandon Cook number 2 and Jalen Tolbert number 3, or do you think that 2 and 3 is more of a matter of perspective?
No, I think what you just said, it's 2 and 3. And there's another guy, if you were at training camp, you would have seen without CD there, he was taking over the offense. Dak and him had really good hookups, and I was talking to Dak about it, and I said, you guys look like you're really in rhythm, or him in rhythm with Brandon Cooks. And I said, he got off to a slow start last year, but it picked up. He said, well, when you got CD there, you're going to CD, right? And the next guy's probably I'm not looking at as much, especially when you're new. But without CD there, Brandon Cooks was showing he could be a number 1 receiver. So I think it's important that he stays healthy, because if he doesn't stay healthy, then you're looking at 3 being 2 and 3's 3 for a reason, and then 4 and 5 being a 3. Then you got problems. So it's not like they got a lot of depth. They've got depth like 5, 6 guys, but one injury, sort of like at the cornerback position. And now you're taking a guy who was the best backup, and now he's your starter. Now who's the next backup? And that's what they're facing right now, I think, at cornerback for sure, and at offensive tackle.
Do you? You've seen Mike Zimmer's defense in Dallas before. What do you compare then to now about the changes with it?
I think the biggest thing will be that he has put a priority on stopping the run. And if you look at what happened to the Cowboys last year, in all 6 of their losses, the teams that beat them rushed for more than 100 yards, and 2 of them rushed for more than 200 yards. And in the playoff game, I know Jordan Love almost had a perfect quarterback rating, but the Packers ran for 143 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I know Zim, and Zim knows he's got to stop the run. And that's why you see him bringing in Linville Joseph, Jordan Phillips, bigger bodies in the middle to help out your linebackers. And the fact that the Cowboys basically, after Leighton Vander Esch went down, were playing with a safety at linebacker as the third guy. And teams took advantage of that. You got this little skinny ass safety there at 215 pounds trying to stop the run, right? So now the thing that I can see is a difference, and I don't know about scheme and zone and man-to-man, but when in practice, when the offense was lining up with 2 tight ends or a fullback out there in their 11, he was playing 3 linebackers. Cowboys very rarely ever last year played 3 linebackers. Even on the goal line, they were playing more safeties than linebackers. So that's one difference I think you're going to see. And then if they can trust another guy or 2 to play defensive end, you could see Michael Parsons playing a little bit more linebacker than he has over the last couple of years.
I would expect, and not that Dan Quinn didn't do this well, but they did it really well actually. But when they got like injury put into a, kind of like they put in a barrel there with like, well, you have to have Marquise Bell linebacker. We're definitely going to have Parsons over here. It took away the let's put Micah Parsons everywhere thing. And if they're healthy, they can really do that. And I'm kind of excited to see what Mike Zimmer does with a piece like Micah Parsons, who you really could just sit in a room and you and the defensive staff come up with like, hey, what if we did this? And you're like, well, it's worth a shot. He's that athletic.
Well, we saw a little bit of it in training camp practices. Now, they didn't play him in any of the preseason games, right? So he's not tipping his hand. I'll be interested to see what takes place in Cleveland because they're going to want to run the ball, although their guy got put on pup for the first 4 games, Chubb. So we'll see what sort of attack Cleveland has. But, yeah, I think Micah Parsons is more dynamic playing linebacker than he is at defensive end, because at defensive end, they know where he's at. At linebacker, when they get to the line of scrimmage, you don't know, is he playing inside? Is he playing outside? Is he blitzing? Is he dropping? Are you trying to run to the ball? Well, if you give him space to run in, he's going to hit the slot and get in there and make a tackle. And that's what he did at Penn State. So again, that's one of the other unknowns that we really don't know. They haven't really tipped their hand yet on how they're going to handle his versatility.
Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Mickey, thank you as always, and I'll talk to you next week.
Good to be with you on a Friday.
All right. Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. We got tense. It got tense.
Yeah.
Mickey and I go way back.
It's coming at you a little bit.
I mean, but look, and I did my point is I don't mind when they get the contracts done. My point is most of this stuff could be done better.
Yeah, I mean, Mickey did bring up some good points, like some things I didn't think of. But at the same time, man, other franchises don't have an issue
like
doing
this. Like this constantly.
It's a show.
Like they're okay, Jamar Chase and the Bengals and the Cowboys have a lot of things. Mm-hmm. The Eagles don't really have these things problematically. Like they get out in front of it.
Well, they're kind
pretty
of that's the difference in like a well-organized machine.
They do they get out in front of it. That's my thing. That's my thing. That's all I'm going to say. I just think they could do it organizationally better.
Jerry just likes the show, man.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
That's part of it. When we come back, our good buddy Josh Neighbors of Big 12 Watch, we go through the Big 12 last night and what's ahead. This is 365 Sports.
Edward Jones financial advisors Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? Invest with Edward Jones financial advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, who invest their time and experience back to you and your money. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Contact Ben Erlinson at 254-759-8533. Brad Wilson's location at 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, proud sponsors of 365 Sports. Edward Jones, making sense of investing, member SIPC.
Is your car ready for a makeover? Get ready to fall in love with your ride again at City Tire and Battery. City Tire and Battery is family owned and has provided expert service with top quality products since 1942. And with financing available, there's no reason to put off those much needed upgrades. Give your car the love it deserves and go see City Tire and Battery, located at 1502 South Valley Mills in Waco.
New arrivals just dropped at Barefoot Campus Outfitter in Waco. Looking for the best Baylor gear? Barefoot is the place to grab your gear. Game day polos, tees, tanks, caps, clear stadium bags, jewelry, and more. Barefoot Outfitters has all the essentials with unique campus apparel and offering comfortable garments and designs. Long-lasting images that people continue to enjoy wearing time and time again. Located right off I-35 on Spate, or shop at barefootcampusoutfitter.com and get free shipping on orders $75 or more. Go Bears.
Everything we do for you. First Central Credit Union says it's game on. Lower your monthly vehicle payments by refinancing your vehicle with First Central. Make it a winning season with refinancing set to your preferences. You decide the due date and frequency. Financed elsewhere? Save money with a new local game plan. Apply online today. We make it easy to score at firstcentralcu.com.
Membership and loan policy requirements apply. Member NCUA.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Call Deborah Holder at 254-300-7202 to see if you qualify to save up to 40% on your auto insurance.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Welcome back. Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch. Josh, I missed our weekly segments so very much.
I did too.
It hurt me at my core not to have you in my life. Now, we talk every week, I think.
We do.
Like, just socially. But,
yes,
but this is a different thing. This is beyond friendship when you're podcasting together.
I've called you in vehicles traveling. I mean, I've called you from press boxes.
Mm-hmm.
I've called you from vehicles. I've called you with different people. I've called you in the car with girlfriends. I've called you in the car with colleagues. I've done of my own apartment. So, Paul, you've been a large part of my life. You traveled a lot of miles with me.
Yes,
I think over the time that I've talked with you too. So,
absolutely,
yeah, man, I miss it.
Yeah, that's by the way, that's probably my DoorDash. Is it DoorDash? Yes. Thank you. Just give it to this guy right here. I'm going to leave this in the interview.
What'd you get?
I'm going to leave this in. Chicken. I got golden chick. Golden chick. So.
Not familiar.
Yeah. Oh, it's a Texas staple. Garrett and I are big fans of golden chick.
Right.
I don't think Garrett minds me saying that he's a big fan of golden chick.
I love golden chick, especially their wings.
Yeah. Today I got tenders. Just going outside the box. Golden chick, not the sponsor of this segment.
If they want to, though.
Yeah. But nobody's telling you no, golden chick.
Come on board.
Your money's green, just like everyone else's. Josh, let's start off with last night. Kansas, UCF, they had no problems. They looked exactly, how we kind of thought. Before we get to Colorado and North Dakota, I want to back that up because the beginning of our show today is a lot of Colorado and North Dakota. So we'll back that up for a second because I want your opinions on KJ Jefferson, who I'm very big on at UCF and fitting in that offense. But I'm getting he and DJU kind of fit in the similar thing to me where you're watching them, you know that they can do something, and you're like, just be an athlete, man. Just do it. And it's like they're both humming along at 90% of the speed limit when they could certainly hit the pedal to the floor.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an interesting thought. KJ, once again, I think he's still recovering from the trauma that he went through last year on the Arkansas Razorbacks. They put him through a lot physically. They did not protect him very well, and so I think he's still kind of recovering from that. He was not particularly accurate last night. He was effective at times. I mean, his seven throws went for 164. So his 7 completions he had went for 164. So, I mean, he was trying to, they're pushing the ball a little bit, and obviously their playmakers made some plays too. I think it's going to be a mixed bag this year. And I think this team's got the talent to be really good. I think if they had a better quarterback, we were talking about them as a Big 12 championship contender. I don't think they are, not just because of KJ, but I would say the defense as well. I'm not sold on UCF's defense. But also, I do think KJ Jefferson, I don't know if he's a Big 12 championship level quarterback on this team, in my opinion.
Yeah. And maybe that changes. Look, he's got a really good, the one thing I will say for both DJU and for KJ Jefferson is they have excellent quarterback coaches coaching them. But coaching only goes so far. I think that when you see guys in their 5th year on another school or two, you're kind of where they're going to be, and you just kind of got to maximize what you're going to get out of them, and then have everybody usually you want the quarterback to raise the level of play of everybody else. Well, this has to be inverted. The other people have to maybe bail out the quarterback a little bit.
Yeah, I mean it's weird. I just don't feel like we're going to see him return to being old KJ. I don't know why that guy. It feels like he's gone. Mm-hmm. I hate to be one bad year or whatever, but even watching him last night, he's also not a really good passer. That's so I think the one thing about this is he was never some super accurate, precise passer in the way a Shedeur Sanders is. And so I think their rushing attacks it's what is what's going to be what's best for them. Like I feel like them, West Virginia, K-State might all be in the same boat. Now, funny thing is, you could make an argument like out of all those teams, RJ Harvey might be like the kind of most effective player out of all that entire group. But also they've got good wide receivers. Like, can KJ utilize, Xavier Townsend and Kobe Hudson the best of his ability? Or as much as a quarterback could? Like, I don't know. I don't know if he's good enough to do all that. So I want to see it. I want to see it like week by week. Because last night, for as good as the win was, like, not particularly impressive from KJ, I thought.
Yes. It's not. But let's get it. Like, we'll get into the week here in a minute, like the actual rest of the week. But I don't think we need to talk about Kansas too much and Utah too much. But I do think the common thread there is Jalen Daniels and Cam Rising look fine. Totally fine. By the way, shout out Caleb Lohner, caught a touchdown late.
He did.
Game.
Yeah.
Caleb Lohner caught a touchdown from basketball to football. First game out, he scores a touchdown. I do have a feeling he's going to play a part in a bigger game because of just the athletic mismatch he will provide in key situations. Brant Keith, the news for Utah is everyone's fine. Brant Keithy's fine. Cam Rising is fine. Their Roth IRAs are probably doing great right now. Right. They'll get together and talk about how the market did this week after the game because they're older dudes, but they look fine, totally fine. And so that's great news for Utah. Jalen Daniels, they didn't even have to ask him to do all that much. He did
not record a rush, I believe.
Yeah,
and the numbers that I was looking at.
Why would you?
Right.
Again, they are in their rushing game, Kansas, at a point with Highshaw and Neal, where Jalen Daniels rushes don't have to be called all that much, where it can just be all right, well, you guys are going to give that to me. I'm going to take it, and then that's going to be where it is. So I think that that's a great thing for them. But Kansas and Utah, your thoughts on pretty much exactly what we thought we'd see from two of the teams that are going to be at the top of the conference more than likely.
It's kind of like going home when you're in college, like going to the bar, like maybe seeing that girl from high school that you're super into. You're like, oh, wow, she's still bringing it. Okay, great. Like, really nice to see you. That's how it felt with Jalen Daniels, and that's how it felt with Cam Rising. It was just nice to see him. It was really nice to see those two guys out there. And for KU, man, to have a team that has got a number 22. I remember a couple of years ago when they snuck by South Dakota. I think what was Lance Leipold's first game as head coach. To see them take a Lindenwood team and just beat the brakes off them, as they should, right? But, to see a 27-point second quarter, they just, like Kansas football is in such a different place. And to see Jalen Daniels was really refreshing. And the two running backs, the top two running backs, had a great night. They were fantastic on the ground. We'll see what that means later on. It was just nice to see him. And Cam Rising, he had 10 completions. 5 of them were touchdowns. So nice night from Cam as well. Yeah. All these teams will have significantly tougher challenges in the coming weeks, but it was just nice to see them, the two quarterbacks. I do my best not to overreact to these games at all, but my only thought was nice to see you guys again. We missed you.
Yeah. Okay. Now I don't think Colorado and North Dakota State, anything we say is going to be an overreaction. And it is just one game. But if you ask me what the difference between Colorado last year and this year is, I will say the patch of the conference on their uniforms. I think the offensive line is a little bit better. The defensive line made some key plays late in the game.
Yeah.
But early in the game, they were absent completely. Offensive line is better, and that's good. But they still have no faith to run the ball, as evidenced by getting the ball back with 2 minutes left and throwing passes until they got a pass interference call that essentially sealed the game up for them. They were not running the ball in that situation. They were throwing the ball, and that tells me that not much has changed, and they will not get away with that, maybe even next week against Nebraska. That is something that they're going to have to be very concerned about, and because we don't know about Nebraska yet, but I do know that you are not going to be able to just throw on that defense and sit back and let Shadur be the badass that he is, and he's legit badass. Travis Hunter is amazing.
Yeah, he's really good.
He's amazing. He is something we haven't seen in a very long time. Jimmy Horn Jr., very good. Like, they have 3 NFL receivers, or whatever Travis Hunter's going to be. But they have 3 NFL players at wide receiver on the field at any given moment. LeJonte Wester, Jimmy Horn Jr., and Travis Hunter. And they've got an NFL first-round pick throwing the ball to him. But you cannot live on that alone.
Yeah, like they can't bring any pressure from the middle because they don't have good enough defensive linemen to open up gaps for their linebackers. And they can't bring pressure from the outside because their linebackers aren't fast and athletic enough to get to the quarterback. Like, I'm not sure what the final numbers were last night in terms of the defensive situation. So let's see, they had 7 TFLs and 2 sacks. Yeah, like they made a concerted effort to bring pressure because, I mean, when they played like zone of any kind, it just got shredded. They were not great in coverage. And like Travis Hunter wasn't particularly good either in coverage. Now, like, I think like anytime I watch him play on either side of the ball, especially last night, like they needed him as a wide receiver. That was kind of what was needed. So I can really I'll forego judgment on the cornerback part of things, but their defense is just like, honestly, Paul, too, that they look small. The defense did not look big. They don't look like they've got guys that can reach the quarterback. And what was the kid's name from Texas Tech a few years ago? They went to the defensive lineman and
Tyree Wilson.
Yes. Like Texas Tech ends up having a guy like that. You know, remember Dominic Williams left, but like that guy was a beast as a freshman. You know, Colin Oliver was a really good pass rusher as a freshman. These Big 12 schools, guy with a weird name outside, you know, I'm terrible with names right now. K-State, the guy who went to the Chiefs, 32nd, whatever it was.
Golly.
Yeah, you know,
I know who you. Yeah.
It's a Friday afternoon. All right,
Yeah.
and I've had a very long week. Yeah, so like you, these teams are developing talent and getting guys who are, you know, end up being really good defensive players and like look the part. They've got nobody who looks the part. They've got nobody on defense who looks the part. Travis Hunter does not actually look the part. He's really, really slender and small. He looks the part for a Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
But doesn't look the part for a Richard Sherman.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, once again, also, I do think he actually is probably the best player in college football, to be honest. I don't think it's unfair to say. So that's a nice trump card to have, but like football skill players are really fun and fantastic, but if you don't win at the line of scrimmage, it doesn't really matter. That's why the championship team last year, Michigan, pushed a lot of teams around on offense and was very, very stern on defense. So
yeah,
Colorado I'm not saying they're trying to contend for a national championship, but like we're talking about like trying to be a conference champion. They don't look good enough. They don't look big enough, which is like weird because like everybody's like Deion's recruiting well. It's like, but recruits who are good normally look a certain way. And they don't look like that at all. They don't look like at all.
He last year, Garrett and I talked about this when he was talking about their roster, and he's like, "Y'all don't know who we have coming," and we're like, "Well, yeah, we all do. Yeah. They're transfers. We saw them play, but these aren't high school kids that you are like picking out of the thing. Like this is not Art Briles finding 3-star kids who run 4.4s.
Yes,
that everybody's overlooked. Like you are picking guys out of the transfer portal, which sometimes is great. Especially when you brought those kids from Jackson State yourself, but also like, you know, it could be better. And you have to he's got to figure out the balance between high school recruiting and the portal.
But does he want to?
I don't think he wants to.
That's the big question, right?
I don't think he wants to because
I
think he's tried, but I think that he doesn't not that. I don't think Deion thinks he's above talking to high school coaches, but from what I
like the hard part of recruiting, I can tell you that. He can recruit because he's Deion.
But it's also harder for him because like Deion can't just like sneak into Mumford High School without like somebody like.
But this is why you put ace recruiters on your staff.
Yeah, and he, you know what, he has. Here's the mistake that he's made so far. He's got Pat Shurmur, who's an NFL coach.
Dumb.
He's got defensive coordinators that were not the best recruiters. He had Sean Lewis, then he sent them away. And he wasn't going to have Sean Lewis for very long anyway. That was always going to be like a stopover for Sean Lewis. But like, he's got to get recruiters on that staff. He's got a bunch of guys who played in the NFL, and that's fine for part of your staff. But are those guys out there recruiting? He does not have the ace recruiter right now. I think he did have Tim Brewster for a minute, but Tim Brewster is a bit of a hit and run guy.
Alabama paid the GM, CEO, whatever it is.
Yeah.
$800,000.
Uh-huh.
That's like a recruiting position. That's like the players like this guy position. That's like kind of what that is. All right. Deion Sanders, he can rely on like his personality to get certain guys, but like, if you're attracting a certain level of player, you have to like be selecting. All right, like this is where I see for this guy. Like this is like, or like it doesn't need to be a bunch of 4 stars. It can be like, look, this 3 stars got size that we need. We need to bring him. Like they need to kind of like look at the rosters. This was my problem when he said the Louis comment. When he's like, I'm bringing my Louis with me, because you can't tell me there weren't any players at all on Colorado's roster that you could look at and say, hey, this guy could be good. This guy could be a rotation player for this. This guy would be nice to have if a player went down. But instead he was like, I'm bringing my Louis with me, hit the road. It's like, you haven't even looked at the roster to see if there's any player worth developing or keeping or who is in a weird situation with the last staff. Like it feels like it's almost like Jerry Jones, the Cowboys. I know he's not really running things anymore, but like the big knock on Jerry is that like, was Jerry grinding all the film necessary to make decisions for his team that like other GMs were doing? And look, the Cowboys have been good for a while, but like I don't think Jerry was doing that. Now, luckily, it seems like Stephen Jones actually does that. Like I will give Stephen credit. Like it's like he's putting together completely crap teams every year. They're decent.
Yeah. Stephen
but like
Jones
Jerry,
are killing it, but
right. Like Jerry's not like
Will is, but I don't know about Stephen. We'll that remains to be seen. Another topic for another day.
Like Stephen, yeah. Like that's kind of how I feel about Deion. It's like, when I look at that defensive line, I'm like, did you think about this roster at all?
Yeah.
Like, who are these guys? Like who are these dudes rushing the passer? Because like they're not going to get home. They're just not getting the Big 12. If they lead the league, if they're top half of the league in sacks, I will be shocked. Or it's because they bring a ton of pressure. Also, they weren't particularly good at covering anybody last night either. Mm-hmm. And like this isn't a super fast North Dakota State team. I know they're good FCS wise, but like where those teams typically lose is the athletic and speed of disadvantages. I heard Bud Elliott say this the other day. He was like, spread them out. Colorado will spread them out and win that way. On offense, that worked. On defense, they got spread out. They got punched in the mouth, and they were allowing stuff over the middle too. Like it was pretty equal opportunity. I mean, the Hail Mary got caught at the end of the game. The throw was short. Yeah. I mean, they didn't do anything, pretty that well on defense last night.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Last thing we'll talk about, like the rest of the Big 12. I mean, not that many intriguing. I'm curious about Arizona State, Wyoming could be, I think that's a good opening test for them.
Yeah.
Houston and UNLV is really interesting. Yeah. That's going to be a really tight game. But I do want to use most of the time we have left to talk about West Virginia and Penn State. I'm picking West Virginia to win the game. I know that Penn State wins most of the time when they're favored by a touchdown or more, and they are. They're 8.5, but I think this one means a lot to the many in Morgantown there. So I think the Mountaineers are primed to send a message.
Yeah, so I'm going the other way on this one. I just think that these two teams are going to, well, I mean, if Andy Kotelnicki runs what he's run at Kansas, both of these teams are going to try and accomplish pretty similar things. And I just think that when it comes to that kind of matchup, Penn State just got the better personnel on the off. Now, I know West Virginia's line's very good, but and you could say Garrett Green wasn't the guy he is now, but they didn't look excellent last year when they played Penn State. And so I think the problem I have is like, man, West Virginia's offense is at their best when they're just really hitting that run game really well. And look, maybe that three-headed monster of Jaheim White, CJ Donaldson, and Garrett Green is cash tomorrow. Maybe it's all cylinders. I wouldn't be completely shocked. But like if the game is decided in the trenches, I'm gonna go with Penn State, and that's kind of the thing. Like West Virginia is not they spread you out some, but like it's because they're trying to open things up for the running game. It's not because like they've got great wide receivers. Like this is not, the Gary Jennings, David Sills type situation here. This is more of the three best players are all in the backfield as rushers. Mm-hmm. And so that's what concerns me. Cause like Penn State's front is like, they're not Michigan good. They're not Ohio State good, but they're pretty good. They're still pretty good. I mean, that's those two, their two losses last year. So I just think Penn State's going to win up front, especially this part of the season where everybody's fresh. Mm-hmm. I think that's where they get them. Also 11 a.m. I wish this game was a night game.
Oh, I'm sure that the Morgantown folks.
Yeah, this game should have been a night game.
Yeah, that's I think that's some Big Ten sauce cooking right there, getting that big noon kickoff and whatever. I mean,
it's great that West Virginia's involved in big noon kickoff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And here's the thing, like Paul, if they win tomorrow, we need to have a serious conversation about how good that team can be, because the way that they would win, unless they all of a sudden start chucking the ball around the yard and they've got like 2 NFL wide receivers and Penn State couldn't cover anybody, like they're going to win because of their dynamic ability to confuse teams with how they run the football and how good their guys who run the football are. And also how much like their defense improved and met the challenge. And like, that would be a really interesting, if they do win, the conversation around Neil Brown for me completely changes. It goes from, I'm proud of you last year for staving off getting fired and like you had a really good year and I'm glad you took play calling in your own hands, to you just did all that and developed it all the way into we prepped, we drilled, game one, top 10 team comes in, we beat you.
Yeah.
And like that would be a significant moment, I think, in West Virginia football history, because, like they had an innovative offensive mind in Rich Rod. He's one of the, honestly, he's kind of the college football father of the spread option. Neil Brown, like kind of readopting the spread option and getting it done would be just a massive resurgence for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch. Find him on YouTube. He's a star in the making, people.
Oh,
he's a star in the making.
Too kind.
Yes. Josh, where's your high school game tonight?
Actually, it's in Little Rock. So Arkansas played at War Memorial Stadium tonight. Last night, excuse me, against the UAPB. Benton and Bryant, they call it the Salt Bowl. It's the 50th playing. It might have 25,000 people there tonight. At War Memorial Stadium. So that's where I'll be.
Oh,
sweating it out, thugging it out on the sidelines. It's going to be hot as hell, and I'll be there for it.
Well, as someone like I've done sidelines like maybe 20 times in my whole career. And I was lucky enough to when I had to do it for college games. It was always later in the season, so it wasn't that bad. But I've had to do it for I had to do it for a high school game in the summer, like an all-star game, and thought I was going to die. Like, literally when they dumped the Gatorade bath on the coach, I like dropped the wireless and ran.
I'm like, put me
too. Me too.
I'm laying on the ground in the Gatorade bath.
Me too.
Me, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch. We'll have him every week. We're going to rotate the time of the segment so that you're not always kind of, you've got to play it. You got to play it loose so you don't just. Yeah. Well, Josh is going to be on at 5:30. Well, that's today. Next week it might be 3:30. We don't know.
I'm all over the place.
We don't know. Yeah, I know. He floats like a butterfly and stings like a well, he doesn't sting at all. He just floats like a butterfly. Josh, we'll talk to you next week.
Yes, sir. See y'all.
This is 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
For Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Happy Friday. Welcome to Paul Catalina's Top 5, presented by Texas Beef House. Use promo code 365sports at checkout. The auction ended yesterday, but they always have other auctions coming up. So check out TexasBeefHouse.com and BidOnBeef.com to see when those are. This is coaches ready to make the jump to the P4. All of them are G5 head coaches, or maybe even something else, but they are ready to make that jump to the big time. Number 5, Jeff Traylor, UTSA. He will be in the mouths of fans at Arkansas for sure if Sam Pittman does not rebound and not get fired this year. His name is already in the mouths of Baylor fans about who want Dave Aranda gone, and that will remain to be seen. And I would not be surprised to see a couple of schools we're not even thinking about be on that list for him as well. He's an excellent head coach. He has certainly hit the groove of being a really good college coach and a really good recruiter, and somebody with big resources is going to come and pluck him out of a job he really likes at UTSA. He's a friend of our show. We talk to him all the time, and he really likes it at UTSA. I really do believe if he stayed there for the rest of his career, he would not complain to anybody. But somebody eventually is going to come and get him and say, like, hey, how would you like to, come to the dark side, so to speak, and not have to fight against us and just have these resources at your disposal? And he's going to say yes, because he deserves it. He's earned it. But he and UTSA are a great match, an absolutely great match. But I think he's ready to go. Number 4, Jamie Chadwell at Liberty. This is the 3rd year in a row that I'm going to tell you, especially you morons in the ACC, hire this dude. For the love of God, he's a really good coach. And he's got resources at Liberty. And you can see some of the talent retention they've been able to do there with the resources they have. Now, take him and put him at a real school and see what he can do. He is, one of those nice guy Ted Lasso coaches. Everybody likes him. He is going to win where he goes. He's a program builder. He can do it. He deserves the shot. I'm tired of swimming upstream. Are you listening to me, ACC? When you have an opening, Jamie Chadwell. God, drives me nuts. Drives me nuts. Number 3, Ryan Silverfield at Memphis. A Mike Norvell disciple, one of the best offensive line recruiters and coaches in the country, and doing a heck of a job at Memphis. Now, FedEx might like him enough to get him to stay. So we'll see that Fred Smith money coming at Memphis, if that changes things, plus with the remodeling of the stadium. But he is certainly going to win a lot this year. He's got a 4-year starter coming back at quarterback in Seth Hennigan. If you can do that at Memphis, you can do that a lot of places. And keeping Seth Hennigan for as long as he has is really good, because there are teams in the top 20 who would trade out their quarterback for Seth Hennigan right now. And he kept him at Memphis. That's impressive in today's college football. And Ryan Silverfield, certainly ready to go. Number 2, G.J. Kenney at Texas State. Brilliant offensive mind. Unfortunately for Texas State, any kind of success they have and they get back to a bowl game and drink the bowl dry again, he's going to get calls. He is going to get calls. And I would not be surprised if some of those same Jeff Traylor jobs are also interested in G.J. Kinney. And I mean, like, there are Big 12 jobs I could see him fitting at really, really well if they came open, and we don't know what's going to happen in the Big 12 this year, and I don't really think that outside of Dave Aranda, there's anybody really on the hot seat in the Big 12, but G.J. Kinney would destroy in the Big 12, in my opinion. Young coach, really smart, really savvy, will do really well wherever he goes next. And number one, we drop all the way out of the G5 into the FCS. New friend of the show, Jimmy Rogers from South Dakota State. Look, he took over a program that was really good, and he's made them great. Nothing that he does at South Dakota State is different than anything anybody else does anywhere. He'll just have more weapons at his disposal and more things to do it with. An awesome coach, a guy who is, again, young and can really build. This is your next Kalen DeBoer right here, Jimmy Rogers. I think stop wasting time. Get this guy a job. Hey, Big Ten, he wouldn't even have to move that far. Wouldn't even have to move that far to most of your places. So you're unhappy with your coach in the Big Ten? I give you Sir Jimmy Rogers of South Dakota State, a defending national champion. Right there. That's going to do it for the show. I'm Paul Catalina. Thanks to all of our guests today. We tried to cover every conference and everything we possibly could. That's what the Friday shows are going to be. Big weekend previews for you. Hope you enjoyed it. We're all back together on Monday. Enjoy the football weekend, everybody.